less in the way of sunshine. Temperatures still climbing towards 23 degrees. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Greater Manchester, the A635 is closed in both directions along Ashton Old Road off Pottery Lane at Beswick after an accident. In Lincolnshire, the A17 is closed in both directions west of the A15, Holdingham roundabout at Sleaford for an investigation. Delays as you divert. In Northamptonshire, the A43 is partly blocked southbound at Hulkert, causing queues heading away from Northampton from Tiffield. In Wiltshire, the A363 is partly blocked by an accident at Farley Wick, causing delays. On the M26 in Kent, there are long westbound delays approaching the M25 because of lane closures on the M25 nearby for roadworks. Trains are back up and running southbound, but delays of up to 20 minutes between Horsham and Barnham after track safety checks earlier on. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Theatres and drama schools are being offered plus-size inclusivity training. Come on, seriously, is this really a thing? In order to tackle fat phobia, to apparently make the theatre more inclusive for bigger bodies, a lady called Ruth Ann Phillips, who is a plus-size theatre director, she's behind the drive. Now, apparently, her own research, so it's not exactly independent, showed that 9 out of 10 respondents should have training on size inclusion. Ruth is also the co-founder of Inclusion Collective, which is an organisation that provides training in creative well-being, body positivity and inclusive movement. Her website contains resources on fat activism, advocacy for the rights and dignity of fat people, combating discrimination and the body-conscious scale. This is actually about health. Ruth is conflating the two. Professor Carol Sikora, a consultant oncologist, said normalising obesity has become fashionable in advertising and the media simply to sell stuff, but it's got nothing to do with celebrating diversity. Nobody needs to be fat. It's like encouraging risky behaviours such as smoking, driving after a booze up or lying like a lobster on the beach in the sun. A balanced diet and lots of exercise are the cornerstones of a healthy lifestyle. He went on to say, how can anybody possibly justify these projects? Plus-size inclusivity training, please bring back common sense. Well, exactly. I'm for equal opportunity and for giving people credit based on merit and what they bring to the table, even if it is food. Only joking. That's where the way to my heart is through my gut. I'm looking for a man that can cook. But in truth, being obese can be dangerous. And whilst I absolutely agree you should love what God gave you, obesity is the biggest killer and costs the health service a fortune. People come in all shapes and sizes, and it's a wonderful thing. But to conflate body positivity with obesity is very dangerous.
The People's Channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9:30 on Friday, the 21st of June. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Ben Leo, and Nana Aquir.
Right, well, coming up, fears grow for Tenerife teen. There's fresh leads, including a new bombshell video emerge in the search for 19-year-old the British partygoer Jay Slater, as his friends accuse Spanish police of not working hard enough to find him.
And Russia attacks British hospitals. Hackers have forced the cancellation of more than 1,000 NHS operations and 2,000 appointments, including those of babies and children. And get this, they've demanded a huge £40 million ransom from the NHS to return stolen data.
Wow. Now, you bet I'm angry. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says that he's furious about allegations that senior Tory party aides wagered bets on the date of the general election that would net them tens of thousands of pounds.
I want to be crystal clear that if anyone has broken the rules, they should face the full force of the law, and that's what those investigations are there to do, and I hope that they do their work as quickly and as thoroughly as possible.
Starmer praises Corbyn. Did you see this last night? The Labour leader stunned the nation by saying his old colleague, Jeremy Corbyn, would have made a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson.
And if you watched the match last night, of course, Gareth Southgate is under pressure. He's, of course, the manager for England, and he's coming under fire for his team's lacklustre performance in the Euros so far after a dismal 1-1 draw with Denmark. There are calls for his resignation, but are they justified? Well, we would love to hear what you think. Send us your views and post your comments. Visit gbnews.com/your say.
And of course, don't forget, tonight from 7 p.m. on GB News, Vote 2024, The Leaders. Our political editor, Chris Hope, will be interviewing Sir Keir Starmer with questions from you, GB News viewers. Did you manage to watch the debate last night?
I was out doing a little... Why do you ask me that? I was out at a party.
Well, do you know what? You didn't miss much. And if you'd chosen to watch the football as well, you also didn't miss much. I was flicking in between the two, and I thought both these programmes are utterly boring, so I turned it off and went to bed.
Well, listen, we have also asked Rishi Sunak, Ed Davey and Nigel Farage, who will appear before the end of the campaign. So that'll be fascinating viewing, so I'm looking forward to getting them on GB News and hearing what they have to say for everything.
And you know Chopper won't let them off anything.
No,
Forensic grilling from Crystal Hope.
Right, first, though, here's the news with Sam Francis.
Ben and Nana, thank you very much. Good morning from the newsroom. It is just after 32 minutes past 9. And first this morning to reports coming to us from Spain, where we understand a British tourist has been stabbed to death outside a nightclub. That took place in the early hours of this morning. Reports suggest the 30-year-old victim was killed during a fight with another group of tourists in the resort town of Calella, leaving another person injured and now in hospital. Local police there are leading the investigation. They're also reviewing CCTV footage and interviewing other club-goers who may have seen the incident unfold. That nightclub now remains cordoned off with a significant police presence in the area. No arrests so far being made. Well, as we heard just moments ago, a gang of cyber criminals has reportedly published sensitive data stolen from an NHS blood testing company, causing major disruption to several London hospitals. The Russian cybercrime group, known as Quillin, has been extorting NHS provider Synovis since hacking the firm on the 3rd of June. Overnight, that group shared nearly 400 gigabytes of private information, reported to include patient names, dates of birth, NHS numbers and blood test results. The NHS says it's now investigating the full extent of that breach. Election news for you, and the Prime Minister has now broken his silence on allegations of Conservative election betting. 4 people with links to the party are being investigated by the Gambling Commission, including Laura Saunders, that's the wife of the Tories' campaign director. Craig Williams, another Conservative candidate, has also admitted to an error of judgment, he said, after placing a bet on when the election would take place. Well, speaking last night on BBC Question Time's Leaders Special, Rishi Sunak said that any lawbreakers will be booted out.
I was incredibly angry to learn of these allegations. It's a really serious matter. It's right that they're being investigated properly by the relevant law enforcement authorities, including, as Fiona said, a criminal investigation by the police. You know, I want to be crystal clear that if anyone has broken the rules, they should face the full force of the law, and that's what those investigations are there to do, and I hope that they do their work as quickly and as thoroughly as possible.
Sir Keir Starmer says that Jeremy Corbyn would have made a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. The Labour leader made those comments as he was facing a grilling from members of the public last night at that Question Time special, alongside Rishi Sunak, Sir Ed Davey and John Swinney at last night's Leaders Special in York. Meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats were pushed on their record during the coalition government with the Conservatives, and the SNP insisted that independence is essential if Scotland is to become a fairer and more equal country.
I honestly believe that Scotland would be a stronger country and would have better prospects if we were an independent country. That's been my view, my honest view over my entire adult life. But I'm a Democrat, so I accept that we can't be an independent country until the people of Scotland vote for us to be an independent country.
Those are the headlines. I'll be back with your next update at the top of the hour. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the code on your screen or go to our website, gbnews.com/alerts. Now, though, it's back to Nana and Ben.
Very good morning to you, and welcome to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Ben Leo, and Nana Akwe.
Now, before we get into the new leads, before we get into anything, the new leads for the search for the missing teenager in Tenerife, Jay Slater, let's have a quick look back at the last 24 hours in the election campaign.
Well, like you, I was incredibly angry to learn of these allegations. It's a really serious matter. It's right that they're being investigated properly by the relevant law enforcement authorities, including, as Fiona said, a criminal investigation by the police.
Migration is at record levels at the moment under this government. They've completely lost control. We need to get that number down. We need to get it significantly down. I'm not going to put an arbitrary figure on it, because every single politician who's put a number on it has never met that number.
When Alan Bates wrote to me, I'd been in office about 2 weeks, and I wrote to him and said, no, this is a matter for the Post Office, we don't govern it, and I'm not going to meet you. He wrote back furious, he did, and then I read his letter and said, well, I better meet him. And I met him in October, as you said, Fiona, and I took all his questions and I asked them to my officials and to the Post Office. And they gave me a categorical assurance that the points that Mr. Bates was making were not true.
When Labour launched their manifesto last week, there were 6 key objectives. Not one of them mentioned legal immigration. Not one of them mentioned the population explosion in this country.
I can't even see.
Oh.
OK, the search for missing teenager Jay Slater has entered its 5th day in Tenerife after he was last heard from on Monday morning.
Very sad. Now, a friend of his has hit out at the Spanish police, claiming that they are not doing enough and that they want the British police to get involved.
The 19-year-old called a friend who said he was lost with no water and his phone was on 1% battery. So joining us now from Tenerife is journalist Cleo O'Flynn. Good morning, Cleo. Give us the latest update, please, on this young British lad. A new video has emerged this morning of him in a nightclub, I understand. Does that change materially the investigation thus far?
No, not really. The video comes from the event that he was attending with his friends last weekend, and I don't think the police feel that there are any new clues in the video. It's a sign that, you know, he was having fun before he disappeared. We're still looking. There's no new leads at the moment as far as the police are concerned. They confirmed to me yesterday evening that they are continuing to focus their search on an area known as Masca in Tenor Rural Park, which is a mountainous, rugged, volcanic kind of a landscape. Lots of ravines and gulfs and trails where Jay might have gone off route. So the video, while it shows that he was here, we needed proof of that. It doesn't give the police, as far as I am aware, any new leads. It's got to be said the police operate differently to maybe the way that we would be used to police operating in the UK and Ireland. They do tend to work, I won't say secretively, but in a closed way. They like to keep their operations tight. And I certainly haven't heard that they are not putting as many or the full forces of the security teams that they can muster into the search for Jay. And they're as concerned, I think, as anybody else, and certainly as the local population are, that we find this young man.
With his mobile phone when he made the call, have they traced exactly where he was when that happened?
So the ping from that mobile phone was near this small picturesque village called Masca. Anyone who's been to Tenerife and has decided to leave the coast for a visit might have visited it. It's a tiny village up. Oh, we seem to have lost her for a moment. Cleo, you've frozen for a moment. But it is.
Oh, you're back with us, Cleo. There were some reports this morning in the Sun newspaper. They've got some reporters on the ground there who were saying that the 2 British men who Jay was partying with the night he disappeared had flown back to England on Tuesday. They were meant to go home on Monday. They flew home on Tuesday instead. But Jay's friends are now calling for British police to get involved and speak to those 2 men. What do we know about them, if anything?
As far as we are aware, there are 2 British people who were also here at the same party or the same 3-day rave, New Generation Rave Festival. And that's when they got to know Jay and invited him back to their Airbnb, which was near that village. Now, I have been told that the police here have spoken to them, and then they flew back on Tuesday. That is the information that I have been given. Whether that can be stood up or is incorrect, I don't know, but I mean, I'm going on what I'm being told from a very reliable source. I don't see that there would be any harm in the police speaking to them again in the UK. The idea of bringing British police out here, I think, would need to be thought through very thoroughly. If they're going to bring in an international force, I think they would need people who know the terrain very well. It would be like asking a Canarian police force to go and search for somebody on Ben Bulben or in the Lake District. I mean, it is this particular kind of terrain that is known to our local mountain and rescue teams. It looks like a small island when you fly in. It looks like it should be easy to search and navigate, but it is not. And certainly if you go off path up near that village of Masca in that park of Tenno, these are paths that have been marked and changed by erosion. They're volcanic zones. They're dry, arid. We can see them there. There's only very little green cover for anybody. And if you go along a trail that thinks might lead you down to the coast, you will suddenly turn and find yourself perhaps heading north or northwest where you didn't know that you were going. So it's quite easy to get lost and get disorientated. One thinks it should be easy to find people. Unfortunately, every now and then, Canarian people who know the area well do also go missing and are not found, despite the full force of the law out looking for them.
And Cleo, I was reading that temperatures at night time there can go as low as 1 degree, is that right? And of course, in the daytime, it can get very, very hot. And Jay, as we understand, was wearing only shorts and a T-shirt.
The temperatures have been at about 25, 26 degrees down here in the coast. Up in the mountainous areas, it is a thinner altitude. My geographical knowledge is not scientific, but I know that if you're up that high up, once night falls, yes, the temperatures do drop dramatically. So it's hot during the day, cold at night. And Jay was wearing, as we believe, T-shirts, shorts, and probably just ordinary tennis shoes. He hadn't got water. We were led to believe that's what he told his friends when he phoned them on Monday morning. So we're 72 hours into a search. Obviously, everyone is still very hopeful. I know there's a Facebook page here which is being run by his friends and family. And I think last night I feel for them because there was a sense of, I think, despair from some of the comments. They felt they had done absolutely everything they could and there was still no sign of Jay. It is the most difficult thing to do, to try and look for a family member or a friend, especially in a foreign country, because while you might come here on holidays in the tourist areas, when you're up in the mountains, you are in a foreign country in many ways. So it must be very, very demoralising, not just for the police, but also for the friends and family who are looking for them. And, you know, the rest of us, the community here, have their fingers crossed and we really still hope for the best.
Cleo, thank you very much. That's Cleo O'Flynn. She's there live in Tenerife. Very, very sad.
It's got echoes of Michael Mosley, hasn't it?
Well,
just
a little bit,
for
but
a walk and disappearing.
Yeah, it's just, you know, when you're somewhere else, somewhere foreign, I get really concerned that people go to somewhere that they don't really know the terrain and they make a decision to try and get somewhere else. I just think, I'm so scaredy cat. I just wouldn't do anything like that.
It was his first holiday abroad as well.
Oh.
Tragic, 18 years old. His mother, Debbie, who's spoken this morning to the newspapers, she believes that somebody may have even kidnapped her son, saying there's a main road, there's bus stops there's cafes, it's a hiking route. She said, I've got a bad feeling. I'm warned there's a lot of bad people in Tenerife. I think he's being held against his will.
No, I mean, obviously those are her thoughts and, you know, she obviously wants him to be found alive, so she may well be saying those things. We have no evidence of any of that.
OK, well, we'll keep you up to date with that tragic search throughout the morning. We've got 2 other reporters coming down the line very, very shortly from Spain, including a Daily Mail reporter, Nick Pisa, who's been getting into the nitty-gritty of the search. But anyway, up next, did you see this last night? The poor performance from England in the Euros, drawing 1-1 with Denmark. There are calls now for Gareth Southgate, the manager, to resign. Do you agree? But in better sporting news, I'm not sure if you like tennis now.
I love
do.
Tennis.
Jack Draper, young 22-year-old Brit, he beat the world number 2 Alcaraz in Queens yesterday in London. Massive victory for him. Aidan McGee is going to be here in just a second. We're going to run through the tennis and the football in 2 seconds. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Stick with us.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Recent polling suggests dentistry has become the hardest NHS service for patients to access, within NHS treatments still 15% lower than pre-pandemic levels. So a YouGov survey reveals that more than 70% of Brits describe seeing the dentist as difficult, compared with 64% for GPs and 42% for A&E services. One British man, get this, he even took to flying 10,000 miles for dental care, saying the extra time and money spent was far less hassle than trying to get an appointment on the NHS. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. And a shocking 1/5 of UK adults have also admitted to trying DIY dentistry, including the old trick of tying string around a wobbly tooth and slamming it in the door so it comes out. So, should people be more careful when taking their teeth into their own hands?
That is one of the problems. Obviously, population growth makes it much more difficult for people to access NHS services, but they need to then catch up on the other side with dental services and increase the amount of dentists and access to dentistry, and especially NHS dentistry, obviously.
What's the cut-off age for free dentistry on the NHS?
So it is 18 years old, but there are exemptions around maternity, pregnancy. There's some free care around pregnancy.
We saw some data a few weeks back about the number one cause for child admission into A&E is tooth decay. I mean, that was shocking when I read it.
It's really bad, and what happens is kids with multiple decayed teeth, they basically have to be put under general anaesthetic, and then all those rotted teeth have to be extracted under general anaesthetic. Like, if those baby teeth start going crooked, then the adult teeth start going crooked as well. Right. So it is important to look after the baby teeth. It's really important. I think they should make it more central to their policies, definitely.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Hello, welcome back. It's 9:50, just about 10 to 10 on GB News, Britain's Newsroom. Now, whilst most party leaders were just about finishing up on their TV interviews from last night's debate, Reform UK's Nigel Farage wasn't there. Instead, can you guess where he was? He was sinking pints, watching England play in a pub.
So GB News sports presenter Aidan McGee joins us. OK, so I know how badly they played in the little sort of precursor of the game against Iceland, where they lost.
Yeah.
This should have been alarm bells, but instead they thought, oh, it's OK, it's like a mock exam. Now this disaster.
I wouldn't call it a disaster. I mean, look, I wouldn't even go that far. I just think that it's symptomatic. No, not that either. Not that either. But it's symptomatic of how England performed under Gareth Southgate. So they came out of the blocks quite quickly. They got ahead. But then they just retreated into their shell. We saw it against Croatia in the semi-final in the World Cup in Russia in 2018. We saw it in Euro 2020, which we played a year later at Wembley, the final against Italy. Italy were there for the taking, and we should have really pressed home our advantage, and instead we retreated. And when, in any level of football, Nana, right, if you give the opponents the ball irrespective of the golfing class that you think might be there, if you give them the ball, eventually they grow in confidence, they grow in belief. It wasn't a huge surprise to me that they got back in the game. Now, is this a problem with personnel? Is it a problem with tactics? Is it a problem with the manager? It's probably a little bit of all three. Now, there are plenty of options in that squad to change things going forward. It's better to have these operational difficulties, shall we say, early in the tournament. England have had problems before. Back in, some of us are old enough to remember 1990. There was a flat back four in the first match. It was too rigid. They brought in Paul Parker for Gary Stevens. This is Bobby Robson was the manager, of course, native of the North East. And they brought in Mark Wright at sweeper, and they looked far, far better going forward. Got all the way to the semi-finals, lost on penalties to Germany. So you can make things.
But Aidan, isn't the problem Southgate's mentality? I think he's a perfectly nice chap. He's a really kind guy. I've met him a couple of times. Very, very nice guy. But the mentality, you go 1-0 up, and as you mentioned in Euro 2020, the final against Italy, 1-0 up with the whole game to go, and what do? You park the bus like a scared little cat.
I agree, and more so now. The problem is that the squad is a bit more unbalanced. So if your best players are further up the pitch, don't forget James Maddison and Jack Grealish, fantastic attacking players, didn't even get into this squad. So that's because we've got a glut of players in that area of the pitch. So you've got to play, I would have thought, to their strengths. When you've got weaknesses at the back, the best form of defence, Nana, is to attack. And they didn't do that last night. Now, Kyle Walker made a good point afterwards. You know, he said, what about Phil Foden? He was slightly better tonight. Jude Bellingham was largely anonymous. And Kyle Walker said, it sounds like an excuse, but it is true. He said, you're playing against players who are playing for their country now. You're looking at one for one, man for man, the Denmark side. They've got some good players, but they're playing for their country. It really matters. You're not going to swap these sides apart. And I'd rather improve as we went along than thrash teams in the group stage, as we did in Russia, and then struggle later on. My only concern about this, Nana, is that it's 2006 all over again. The golden generation, which later became known as the golden shower. David Beckham, Steven Gerrard, Paul Scholes, Rooney, the two Coles. They were nowhere to be seen when it came to winning trophies. They couldn't get past the quarterfinals.
Isn't this a disease of almost a British sport in many things? So we're like this in tennis as well. Eventually, Andy Murray managed to crack through when he won the Olympics in 2012, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
At last. But we have this...
Well, he backed it up with the US Open just a few weeks later.
We seem to be crumblers when it comes to the crunch.
I disagree with that. I do firmly believe, and I don't think there's any doubt at all, I think the UK, or Britain or England or other is the best sporting nation in the world. We literally compete at everything. There's nothing we don't really do. You know,
bear in mind our size and population.
Yeah. The population is not small if you look at globally, but we do make good representation in every sport. Not every country, in fact, very few countries can say that. So. Look, I never thought we'd see a Grand Slam winner in tennis, certainly not on the male side, and we saw it, and we saw Olympics winner with Andy Murray.
Talking of tennis, Jack Draper, young 22-year-old yesterday, mentored by Andy Murray. He beat Carlos Alcaraz at Queen's yesterday. A big breakthrough moment.
Yeah. Oh, hugely. I mean, look, Alcaraz will be, I think, the stellar player that we or the player of his generation over the next 10 years or so. The heir apparent to Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, take your pick. And for Jack Draper to pull off that win yesterday, yes, it's quite early in the tournament, but you know he's playing today against Tommy Paul. Who knows what could happen? And Jack Draper, number one in the world, could be the heir apparent to Andy Murray. Who knows?
Well, I hope so.
Thank you, Aidan.
Because I can be quite disloyal. Because remember, there was Murray Hill. Now there's something else now. So I would...
Murray Mound.
Murray Mound. That's the one.
We'll be back in just a sec. Here's your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another fairly dry and bright day for most of us, warmest in the south and east once again, but some rain is arriving later on today from the west. That's a weather front moving into parts of Northern Ireland through this morning and into western areas of Scotland by this afternoon, and we will see some rain on that this evening across this far south and west. But ahead of it, another dry and fine day. Plenty of sunshine around, high UV levels as well. It's going to feel warm in that June sunshine, highs of 24, 25 degrees across the southeast, but up to the low 20s up across northeastern areas of England, southeastern Scotland even as well. But into this evening, that wet weather will make its progress a little bit further east. It's not going to bring too much in the way of heavier rain, but it certainly will turn cloudier from the west. So parts of the Highlands, the Western Isles seeing some of that rain. Northern Ireland could see some heavier showers breaking out as well. But further east across northeastern England, actually will still be a fairly dry and bright evening. Temperatures still pretty high as well to end the day. Into Devon and Cornwall as well, we could see some of that wet weather, particularly on the coast and high ground is where we're most likely to see that rain. rain. Now, this rain is going to move eastwards through the night to central areas of England, and it will likely lie across the southeast of England by the morning. It'll introduce quite a lot of cloud around, and there will just be some light drizzly rain on and off for many areas of the UK. Still fairly mild though, temperatures not dipping much below 10 degrees quite widely. Now, it does turn a bit clearer, but to the west of this weather front, so across Northern Ireland and Scotland, it will be a fine start to the weekend. And actually across parts of Wales, the southwest should brighten up quite quickly as well. Some cloud will likely linger for more eastern areas of England, southeast and Scotland as well. There could be a few showers around too, but it's still going to be feeling warm despite the less in the way of sunshine. Temperatures still climbing towards 23 degrees. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Greater Manchester, the A635 is closed each way along Ashton Old Road off Pottery Lane in Beswick after an accident. In Lincolnshire, the A17 is closed each way west of the A15, holding a roundabout at Sleaford for an investigation. In Worcestershire, the A449 is blocked northbound by an accident near Chartley Lane at Horford, causing delays. In Northamptonshire, the A43 is partly blocked southbound by an accident near the Halkett turn-off, causing queues heading away from Northampton that start roughly halfway between the Blisworth and Tiffield turn-offs. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. Buses replaced trains between Exeter, St David's and Plymouth because of an incident. And in Cornwall, the A30 is partly blocked eastbound where someone's broken down towards the Branwell roundabout in Penzance, causing queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our Summer Spectacular. And have we got a prize for you? First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Ben Leo and Nana Akweer.
OK, well, let's start with Tenerife as there are kidnapped fears. The mother of missing Tenerife teenager Jay Slater has emotionally told how she fears her 19-year-old son may have come to harm on the Spanish island. The hunt for the Lancashire teenager is now in its 4th day.
And happy birthday, Papa. That's what the Princess of Wales posted on social media, alongside this touching family photo as Prince William turns 42 today.
Right, and on to Russia's attack of British hospitals. Hackers have forced the cancellation of more than 1,000 NHS operations and 2,000 appointments, including those of babies and children, and demanded a huge £40 million ransom to return the stolen data.
And what did you make of the debates last night? The battle for number 10. Party leaders faced another grilling on TV. We'll debate who came out on top.
You bet I'm angry. That's the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. He's furious about allegations that senior Tory party aides wagered bets on the date of the general election that would net them tens of thousands of pounds.
I want to be crystal clear that if anyone has broken the rules, they should face the full force of the law, and that's what those investigations are there to do, and I hope that they do their work as quickly and as thoroughly as possible.
And you can't have missed this one. Sir Keir Starmer praises Corbyn. The Labour leader stunned the nation last night by saying his old colleague, Jeremy Corbyn, would have made a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson.
Yeah, interesting that he said that, because he's been sort of, in a way, denying that they were... At one point he was saying they were friends and they weren't friends, and now they... And then he distanced him from the party, and all the anti-Semitism that he's been working to get through out of the party.
You can see why critics call him Sir Flip-Flop. I mean, one minute he's campaigning for Corbyn to get into government, the next he says he didn't really mean it. Then last night he says that Corbyn would have been better than Boris Johnson. Really? I mean, I think Tom Harwood made some decent tweets about this. He said, well, could you imagine Corbyn handling the vaccine rollout, handling Ukraine, Britain, of course, the first nation in Europe to help Ukraine and arm them, handling, all sorts of, the pandemic.
Well, didn't Jeremy Corbyn want us to get out of NATO and also get rid of nuclear weapons? So I think we'd have been... I mean, if that was the case, we'd probably be in a lot of trouble now, especially with what's going on in Ukraine. But we'd, as I've like to hear what you think. Send us your views. Post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. We will get through those today.
Yes, and also don't forget tonight, massive show from 7 p.m. on GB News. Votes 2024, the leaders. Our political editor, Chris Hope, will be interviewing Sir Keir Starmer with questions from you, the GB News viewers.
We've also asked Rishi Sunak, Ed Davey and Nigel Farage, who will appear before the end of the campaign. But first, let's get your latest news with Sam Francis.
Ben, Nana, thank you very much. Good morning to you. It's 3 minutes past 10, rather, the top story from the newsroom. And first, we'll just bring you a breaking line we're hearing from Northamptonshire this morning, where the Chief Constable of Police there has been found guilty this morning of gross misconduct. Nick Adderley faced allegations that he had lied about his military rank and naval achievements, including doubts that his Falklands War Medal wasn't correct, despite only being 15 at the time of the conflict. A panel have upheld those allegations after a 5-day hearing. Mr Adderley had been suspended on full pay since October. He's now waiting to hear whether he will be dismissed from his role. He, though, continues to deny those charges, claiming that he has acted with honesty and integrity. It's being reported that a British tourist has been stabbed to death outside a nightclub in Spain this morning. The 30-year-old victim was killed during a brawl with another group of tourists in the resort town of Calella, leaving another person injured and hospitalised. Local police are leading that investigation, reviewing CCTV footage, and they're interviewing other club-goers who may have seen that incident unfold. The nightclub remains cordoned off. There is still a significant police presence in the area, but no arrests have so far been made. A gang of cybercriminals has published sensitive data stolen from an NHS blood testing company, causing major disruption to several major London hospitals. The Russian cybercrime group has been extorting NHS provider Synovis since hacking the firm on the 3rd of June. Overnight, that group shared nearly 400 gigabytes of private information, including patient names, dates of birth, NHS numbers and blood test results. The NHS says it's now investigating the full extent of that breach. The Prime Minister has broken his silence on allegations of Conservative election betting. 4 people with links to the Tory party are being investigated by the Gambling Commission, including Laura Saunders. She's the wife of the Tories' campaign director. Craig Williams, another Conservative candidate, has also admitted an error of judgment after placing a bet on when the election would take place. While speaking on BBC Question Time's Leaders Special last night, Rishi Sunak said any lawbreakers will be booted out of the party.
I was incredibly angry to learn of these allegations. It's a really serious matter. It's right that they're being investigated properly by the relevant law enforcement authorities, including, as Fiona said, a criminal investigation by the police. You know, I want to be crystal clear that if anyone has broken the rules, they should face the full force of the law, and that's what those investigations are there to do, and I hope that they do their work as quickly and as thoroughly as possible.
Sir Keir Starmer says that Jeremy Corbyn would have made a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. The Labour leader made those comments as he faced a grilling from members of the public alongside Rishi Sunak, Sir Ed Davey and John Swinney from the SNP at last night's BBC Question Time Leaders Special taking place in York. Meanwhile, at that event, the Liberal Democrats were pushed on their record during the coalition government with the Conservatives, while the SNP leader insisted independence is essential if Scotland is to become a fairer and more equal country.
I honestly believe that Scotland would be a stronger country and would have better prospects if we were an independent country. That's been my view, my honest view over my entire adult life. But I'm a Democrat, so I accept that we can't be an independent country until the people of Scotland vote for us to be an independent country.
Well, away from the election campaign trail, the hunt for a British teenager who went missing in Tenerife has now entered its 5th day, with helicopters and rescue dogs joining the search across the mountains. 19-year-old Jay Slater disappeared after telling a friend he didn't know where he was and needed water before beginning an 11-hour trek back to his hotel. He had been staying in an area on the north of the island with people that he'd met on a night out after a music festival. UK retail sales improved last month with a rebound for clothing and furniture shops. Figures from the Office for National Statistics show the number of items purchased in May were up 2.9%. That's compared to 1.8% the month before. A global alert over fake versions of the drug Ozempic has been issued by the World Health Organization. The medicine has become popular as a weight loss jab, despite its main purpose being the treatment of type 2 diabetes. The WHO says counterfeit versions pose a danger to health and will not help people to lose weight. TikTok is launching a media literacy hub to help users recognise fake news ahead of the UK general election. The social media company says it will cover topics such as how to spot misinformation and give tips for consuming a balanced range of news. It follows a decision to roll out a dedicated general election centre on the platform here in the UK. Royal News and the Princess of Wales has wished the Prince William a happy 42nd birthday with a personal message online saying, "We all love you so much." A photo you can see here if you're watching on TV of the Prince of Wales and their 3 children jumping in the air and holding hands accompanied that message. That photo was taken by Kate last month in Norfolk. The England boss, Gareth Southgate, has admitted they need to raise their game if they're to live up to their tag as favourites to win Euro 2024. They were booed last night by some supporters at full time after a disappointing 1-1 draw with Denmark. England need a point in their final Group C game against Slovenia to guarantee their place in the knockout rounds. And finally, Taylor Swift's billion-dollar Eras Tour is expected to bring a £300 million boost to the economy in London when she performs in the capital later. The US superstar has already played shows in Edinburgh, in Liverpool and in Cardiff, and she's now set to headline 3 sold-out shows at Wembley before returning for 5 more nights in August. Well, a Taylor tube map, a Taylor trail and a special artwork have been created to entertain the expected 460,000 people to attend. For the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good morning. It's just coming up to 11 minutes after 10 o'clock. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Nana Acquia, and Ben Leo.
Good morning to you. Now, the search for missing teenager Jay Slater has entered its 5th day in Tenerife after he was last heard from on Monday morning.
Now, a friend of his has hit out at Spanish police, claiming that they're not doing enough and that they want British police to get involved.
The 19-year-old called a friend to say he was lost with no water and his mobile phone was on just 1% battery. So joining us now from Spain is journalist Gerard Cousins. Good morning, Gerard. Thank you for joining us. What's the latest as we enter is it the 5th or the 4th day now? And also, how significant is this new video that's doing the rounds this morning of the young teenager in a nightclub on Tenerife?
Morning, Ben. Well, the search, the alarm was raised on Monday morning and the search started on Monday afternoon. I've just got off the phone to police in Tenerife. They say the search has resumed. And the same units that were involved, that have been involved all this week, which include scent dogs, police with scent dogs, police helicopter, mountain rescue experts, they're all up in that same area, combing that same area for clues as to where Jay may be. Obviously that last video, it shows a young lad enjoying himself on his holiday. There's nothing in that video, I would say, that would lead one to feel any unease about his state of mind. Shows a young lad partying.
So what is it, Gerard, about the terrain that makes it so difficult for them to find somebody? Because obviously when he made the call and sent a picture, I think it was, from his mobile phone, we were able to pinpoint where he was. So what is it about where he was that was so difficult to track?
Well, we're talking about a gorge, mountains, lots of places where he could have fallen, and obviously we don't know if he's moved from that last spot. He had 1% battery. He could have moved on from there. It's not just the terrain; it's the fact that he was not dressed adequately for the sort of temperatures. The temperatures drop in that area at night time. He admitted to having no water and to being completely lost. So it's a mixture of the terrain, but also the fact that he was a stranger in a strange land, that he didn't know.
Yeah, and Gerard, I understand it was his first holiday abroad with two friends. He went to that music festival, the Energy Festival. Parents from across Britain can imagine what that's like. Your young child going away on their first holiday and tragically ending up missing like this. I mean, talking of the parents, his mother, Debbie, this morning has told newspapers that she fears perhaps he may have come to harm. He may have even been kidnapped. How would that suggestion go down with the authorities over there and the media? How's this story being covered in Spain?
Well, the police have said from day one they were keeping an open mind. They're not ruling anything out. The focus looks to be on the mountain search, the visible mountain search. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of work going on. People have been spoken to. We know of at least one witness that we've spoken to who saw Jay walking away from the village 10 or 15 minutes after he'd asked her for bus timetables. She was surprised because he was walking in the opposite direction to the one he should have been heading in if he wanted to return home south. There are some things that don't add up. But as I say, police are keeping an open mind, and police investigators, aside from the police that very visibly are carrying out that mountain search, are doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work that they are not sharing the results of with the media. They're playing things very close to their chest.
All right, well, Gerard, thank you very much. That's Gerard Cousins joining us live from Spain.
Yeah, so many unanswered questions. His friends saying this morning, why didn't he just get the bus? The bus stop was right outside the Airbnb he was waiting for. Did he miss the bus? Why did he leave his friends to go off with these two lads?
Well, Gerard just said that he asked, and then went in the opposite direction to where he should be going.
Yeah.
So it's all very odd.
Very strange. Well, look, joining us now from Jay's hometown in Lancashire, Oswald Twistle, is our Northwest reporter Sophie Reaper. Good morning, Sophie. What's the mood like down there?
Very good morning to you both. Well, the mood here in Oswald Twistle this morning is an incredibly sombre one. Of course, we're now on day 5 since Jay was last heard from. That morning, Monday morning, he received a phone call, to his friend Lucy, who's told the media that he said he'd missed a bus and that he was instead going to attempt to walk back to their accommodation, which we now know would have taken him around 11 hours was on foot. She also said he'd said to her he was lost in the mountains, he wasn't aware of his surroundings, he desperately needed a drink, and his phone was on 1%. We also know that his mother, Debbie, flew out on Tuesday morning. She said yesterday it's been an absolute living nightmare and that she just wants her baby back. Now, here in Oswald-Twistle, that is a sentiment that's shared. Yesterday evening, family and friends of Jay, as well as members of the local community, gathered here at the Methodist Church. I spoke earlier to the Reverend who led the service that took place. This is what he had to tell me.
Started about 7:30 and people came in. The church was full, as you said, and people were just quite sombre, to be fair. They're worried, and you could tell in the feel of the church. They were quite worried about what's going on, and the fact it's been a number of days now and we haven't heard or seen found Jay. We just started with talking about what faith is about, and about there being hope and a light in the darkness, and the message is keeping on that little bit of light that can't be put out. For us, that's Jesus, but for us today is that light of hope that Jay will be found and he'll be okay.
We heard Matt talking there about hope and a light at the end of the tunnel, and a real symbol for the people of Oswald-Twistle has become this blue ribbon that you can see here behind me. There are dozens of them all over this town here in Lancashire that people, members of the local community, put out yesterday evening to say that they still have hope, that even after the 5 days that have passed, they still have hope that Jay Slater will be returning to his home.
Let's hope that is the case. Stacey Reaper, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Right, we'll stay with us. Still to come, Keir Starmer has said that Jeremy Corbyn would have been a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. We'll be discussing that comment and much more with our panel next. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
98-year-old veteran Ken Cook shared his memories of D-Day at a special event in Harrogate. As a former Green Howards private, Ken was part of an armada of vessels carrying more than 150,000 Allied soldiers to France. And he was just a teenager when his regiment landed on Gold Beach in Normandy.
Everybody was telling us, the officers and the sergeants, corporals, they're telling us, get off the beach, lads, quick, because there's some more stuff coming behind us, and they had to get onto the beach as well. All our equipment and tanks and whatever, artillery, they were following up behind us, so we had to get out of the way and get into the countryside and make as much ground as we could on that first day.
Ken survived that harrowing first day, but many didn't. Around 10,000 Allied troops were either killed or injured. But their sacrifice, along with the bravery of those that lived, changed the course of history and resulted in the end of World War II.
Somebody had to do it, and so we did it. We did our job, and that's it.
Ken is one of the last surviving members of York's Normandy veterans. Part of an ever-dwindling band of brothers who fought on D-Day, he's attending the 80th commemoration in France.
A very emotional occasion this time, because there's not many of us left now.
Remembering the fallen, Ken's wish is that long after he's gone, we still never forget those who gave their tomorrow for our today.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. If you've just tuned in, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. It's just coming up to 21 minutes after 10 o'clock. I'm Nana Acquit. This is Ben Leo.
Very good morning to you. We're also joined, by the way, by journalist and broadcaster Dawn Neeson and broadcaster and author Amy Nicole Turner in the studio. Once again, another week goes by and I'm outnumbered by the ladies.
Oh, it's almost like we plan it on
You're not going
purpose,
to bully me
isn't
again
it?
about underpants, are you, this week?
This is like you at your house, isn't
Have you forgotten to put them on again?
I should have kept that.
He's wearing the same ones.
Are you wearing the same ones for a week?
From 3 weeks ago. I should have kept that going much longer. I watched it back and I thought, I should have kept it going for half an hour.
It was brilliant. But there are men like that. There are men that actually do that 3 weeks without washing their underpants.
Dirty.
A serious political discussion going on here.
Let's start, though, with question time last night. Keir Starmer suggested that, yes, underpants, that Corbyn would make a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. No, why on earth would he say such a thing when he's so far ahead in the polls? It was just unnecessary.
It really was shooting himself in the foot, wasn't it? I couldn't believe it. To be fair, I thought the audience last night were brilliant. I thought they were asking far better questions than any of us so-called journalists have ever done. And I think the politicians, when they're put on the spot on an audience like that, they tend to be more honest. I think they struggle to spin the sort of like, you know, the web of, what's the word?
Obfuscation.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, I was going to think of something slightly more rude. But all the waffle they normally give us, I feel like when they're talking to an audience of real people, they feel like they have to be more honest. And I think that's why he started digging this hole for himself. Yeah. Because we all know he was supporting Jeremy Corbyn last time round. He was backing him. He was backing him to be Prime Minister, even though he's then gone on to say, well, he wouldn't really have been a good Prime Minister, would he? Well, make up your mind with mates like that. Who needs enemies? So I think, yeah, Starmer, who really does need to do an awful lot wrong to lose this election. That wasn't a good performance last night.
It was a really difficult position to put him in, isn't it? And throughout this campaign, I guess Jeremy Corbyn has been a bit of the Achilles heel for Keir Starmer. Because how could a Labour leader not support a Labour leader? Like, it just wouldn't make sense. But
it's just the muddle he's got himself into. All he has to say was...
The question is a muddle. I mean, he can't possibly say, oh, yes, I think that the Conservative Prime Minister would have been a better candidate. He has to stand by the principles of his own party. Can you imagine if he'd said the Conservative Prime Minister would have been better? The headlines the headlines were going to be terrible
He could have been more intelligent and just said, well, it's down to the British public to determine who would be a better Prime Minister. They voted for so-and-so. So therefore, you know, I worked in government to support Jeremy Corbyn because he's a Labour leader. He could have said that.
He always would have preferred a Labour government to a Conservative government, whoever was at the helm. So he's being honest.
Well, I don't necessarily think that would necessarily be true, because a lot of people who were Labour people, did not support or want Jeremy Corbyn to lead the party and deliberately voted for Boris Johnson.
I mean, that's Keir Starmer's big selling point now. He's saying, look, I've reformed the Labour Party, I've dragged them back to the centre ground, I expelled Jeremy Corbyn, Diane Abbott was expelled. That's his big selling stick for this election.
And also, Boris Johnson was a terrible Prime Minister.
I don't think he was that bad. He was dealt a pandemic and a Russia invasion of Ukraine. I mean, that's pretty unprecedented.
And then what did he deal back? Hundreds of lies, defending Chris Pincher, the most horrendous Brexit deal that even Nigel Farage says is an awful Brexit deal. So he wasn't a great Prime Minister.
It's more the application of the Brexit deal. It's more the application of Brexit that I think Nigel's more concerned about, as in the freedoms that we have within the current deal are not being used in any case, which is one thing that we all look at and say, well, why on earth not?
Before we move on, everyone likes to now say, oh, well, look what's happened with Brexit, Nigel Farage. Would you believe Nigel Farage when look how Brexit stand out?
Democratic.
Guys, Nigel Farage hasn't been in government. He's not been in number 10. So how could he pull the strings and architect Brexit?
When it comes, I think, Ben, when it comes to who's the worst Prime Minister, I mean, I'd like to nominate David Cameron. He was the one that took us into the Brexit referendum. He didn't have to do that. He did that because he felt like he had to do it because Nigel Farage would do it. I think that was being a bad Prime Minister.
Well, it depends if you see Brexit as a mistake or not. A good Prime Minister, he said he would have a referendum on it, and he did what he said he was going to do.
Yeah, but he didn't have to, and I think he was pressurised into that by Nigel Farage, and that is not a man that's strong in his own convictions, and that's what worries me.
Pressurised because he thought there was absolutely no chance Brexit would happen.
He thought
it would please the Eurosceptics.
But I don't think that was the worst thing that happened last night. I think the worst thing that happened last night was Keir Starmer on the whole Rosie Duffield woman incident.
What happened?
Well, when he was again questioned by a brilliant member of the audience about what is a woman, do you know what it is yet? And he finally said, oh yeah, I agree with, Tony Blair. He actually said in an interview at the weekend that women have vaginas, men have penises.
And he sounded like a 5-year-old speaking up in a grown-up restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing that annoyed me about that one in particular, Nana, was the fact that he was saying, that man over there was right in defining what a woman is, but a woman doing the same job, well, she was a bit toxic about Rosie Duffield. I think Keir Starmer's got a thing with women.
Do you think that his performance is seriously eating into his so-called poll lead that we keep seeing? Because every time he seems to speak, he does himself damage. I know Rishi Sunak is just as bad, let's be honest. But Rishi Sunak, in everybody's mind, has already lost. There's nothing there. That's what the polls say. But with Keir Starmer, he's everything to lose now.
Now, I don't think anything is budging the polls for Keir Starmer. I actually think people had decided this election before their election was announced by Rishi Sunak. I don't think anything's going to push Keir Starmer's lead now. He could say pretty much anything, and he's still
I don't know
win.
about that, and I don't think the polls are decided. Most people I hear on the street, people I speak to say, I don't know who to vote for, I haven't made up my mind yet.
I think those are generally Conservative voters, disgruntled Conservative voters.
Not necessarily. I don't really think that's...
We could always have a bet on it, couldn't we?
Election
before the election? Yes, that was interesting.
Well, that was the other thing that was raised at the debate last night, wasn't it? Rishi Sunak was asked about the people within his party who have been accused of betting on the day of the election. And again, he said it was incredible. He did answer the question. Again, it was a good question, real hard-hitting question. And he said he was incredibly angry and it would be dealt with. But how embarrassing for 4 people so far that we know of being investigated.
That whole affair
betting.
just personifies, the turmoil that Rishi Sunak particularly has had this campaign. You're surrounding yourself with some very low-grade people. I don't think there's anything, as far as I'm aware, anything illegal about what they did, but it's just, the opposite.
So well, it depends.
Goodness me.
Well, it depends.
Well, it depends
actually,
how much they knew, because what the betting companies were saying were there were a few flutters of bets in between here and there, just normal. Then suddenly, just before the election was announced, there were bets of over £400.
But kind of inconsequential amounts, like not life-changing amounts. Like,
still thousands of pounds. But anyway, that's beside the point.
Your reputation and to abuse your power for a few £1,000s, that, to me, makes it even more...
Well, it's kind of besides the point, because it's just the principle of it. You've got people on the inside trying to make money off bookmakers.
Although we don't know that they knew anything, but it does look suspect, so it's potential. We don't know.
It just shows the moral status quo.
According to all the betting agencies, betting on July election spiked significantly the very day before Sunak announced.
And if you want
coincidence,
and there were bets over £400. I know you said it's not life-changing money, but if you did bet life-changing money and you were close to him, it would become very obvious.
But it's almost like why they need this little dopamine kick that badly that they couldn't resist putting a bet on. It's just...
Well, if they knew, it's probably because they thought they could. But what about marriages? They surge after COVID put love on hold from the Times. Amy?
Yes, so after during COVID, we were playing catch-up with weddings because they went down by 50% throughout the 3 years of COVID. So now everybody's playing catch-up, and we've seen an increase of weddings this year. But they're actually changing. So smaller, more intimate ceremonies are on the up. People are no longer getting married on the weekend. They're getting married on a weekday. I've seen a lot of that going on. And I think it's probably all to do with the cost of living.
I got married in December.
What date in December?
At a Christmas wedding.
What date?
Oh, goodness me. I'm in trouble now.
Oh, my God.
Not another week. December the 9th.
But you didn't, because that is actually the least popular month to get married in this study. And what is the most unpopular day to get married? It's kind of easy when you think about
Christmas Day,
Yeah, Christmas Day. But 3 couples in 2022 got married on Christmas Day.
My nan and the granddad got married on Christmas Day.
Really?
Yeah.
Why
because
not?
it was during...
Because people have got other plans. Did anyone turn up?
It was cheaper back in the day to get married on Christmas Day. They got married on Christmas Day in the very same church that I got married in as well.
But your family are all together, so you might as well tie the knot if you're going to do it there and get everyone together.
Yeah, I know a couple that got married on New Year's Eve, which actually was great because it gave everyone a good party to go to.
Yeah, so you got double party. I'm just waiting for Ben's wife to get in touch now. How dare you forget our wedding?
Oh, luckily she doesn't watch. Otherwise, she probably...
Well, maybe somebody will watch and tell her.
She's probably busy washing your underpants.
Is that a threat, Nana?
My wedding is July the 1st, and it's next week.
Your wedding?
My wedding anniversary.
Oh, your anniversary, that's right.
Yeah,
it's the first one, though, so maybe after that you start losing track. It's a lot to remember.
Yeah.
Well,
oh, come on.
When's her birthday?
I think we've
my wife's?
Yeah.
Go on.
Win it back.
Oh, crikey.
This is not good.
Oh, no.
I'm joking. Of course I know when her birthday
When is it?
It's in March. I'm not going to reveal her birthday. March the 6th, if you must know.
Well, I mean, you know.
Celebration month. Anyway.
Right, well, listen. Thank you very much, Amy Nicole Turner and Don Neeson. Let's get your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. It's just coming up to 32 minutes past 10. The top stories from the newsroom this hour. The suspended Chief Constable of Northamptonshire Police, who lied about his naval achievements, has today been found guilty of gross misconduct. A panel heard how Nick Adderley exaggerated his rank and service during the Falklands War and even wore a campaign medal. That's despite him only being 15 years old at the time of the conflict. He continues to deny the charges against him, claiming he acted with honesty and integrity. Police in Spain are investigating the violent death of a 31-year-old British tourist who's been stabbed to death outside a nightclub near Barcelona. It's being reported the victim was killed during a fight with another group of tourists, leaving another person injured and hospitalised. Local police there are leading that investigation. They're reviewing CCTV footage and interviewing other club goers who may have seen that incident unfold. We understand the nightclub is still cordoned off, though no arrests have been made. Names, dates of birth, NHS numbers and blood test results have been published online after being stolen in a major cyber attack. Health service provider Synovis, which looks at blood tests, was hacked earlier this month by a Russian cybercrime group. NHS England says it's still clarifying what data has been compromised, and we know the hack is largely affecting patients in the south-east of London. The Prime Minister has now broken his silence on allegations of Conservative election betting. 4 people with links to the Tory party are being investigated by the Gambling Commission, including Laura Saunders, the wife of the Tories' campaign director. Craig Williams, another Conservative candidate, has also admitted to what he called an error of judgment after placing a bet on when the election would take place. While speaking on BBC's Question Time Leaders special last night, Rishi Sunak said that any lawbreakers in the party will be booted out.
I was incredibly angry to learn of these allegations. It's a really serious matter. It's right that they're being investigated properly by the relevant law enforcement authorities, including, as Fiona said, a criminal investigation by the police. You know, I want to be crystal clear that if anyone has broken the rules, they should face the full force of the law, and that's what those investigations are there to do, and I hope that they do their work as quickly and as thoroughly as possible.
Sir Keir Starmer says that Jeremy Corbyn would have made a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. The Labour leader made those comments as he was facing a grilling from members of the public alongside Rishi Sunak, Sir Ed Davey and John Swinney at last night's BBC Question Time Leaders special taking place in York. The Liberal Democrats were pushed on their record during the coalition government with the Conservatives, and the SNP leader insisted that independence is essential if Scotland is to become, he said, a fairer and more equal country.
I honestly believe that Scotland would be a stronger country and would have better prospects if we were an independent country. That's been my view, my honest view over my entire adult life. But I'm a Democrat, so I accept that we can't be an independent country until the people of Scotland vote for us to be an independent country.
That's the news from GB News. You can get more online by visiting gbnews.com/alerts or, of course, scan the QR code on your screen. Now, though, it's time for a look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Got it.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Right, well, stay with us. This is GB News. Still to come, we'll be getting the latest on the cyber hackers who targeted London's hospitals and have now leaked sensitive data and are demanding £40 million as a ransom. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another fairly dry and bright day for most of us, warmest in the south and east once again, but some rain is arriving later on today from the west. That's a weather front moving into parts of Northern Ireland through this morning and into western areas of Scotland by this afternoon. And we will see some rain on that this evening across this far south and west. But ahead of it, another dry and fine day. Plenty of sunshine around, high UV levels as well. It's going to feel warm in that June sunshine, highs of 24, 25 degrees across the southeast, but up to the low 20s up across northeastern areas of England, southeastern Scotland even as well. But into this evening, that wet weather will make its progress a little bit further east. Not going to bring too much in the way of heavier rain, but it certainly will turn cloudier from the west. So parts of the Highlands, the Western Isles seeing some of that rain. Northern Ireland could see some heavier showers breaking out as well. But further east across northeastern England, actually will still be a fairly dry and bright evening. Temperatures still pretty high as well to end the day. Into Devon and Cornwall as well, we could see some of that wet weather, particularly on the coast and high ground is where we're most likely to see that rain. Now this rain is going to move eastwards through the night to central areas of England, and it will likely lie across the southeast of England by the morning. It'll introduce quite a lot of cloud around, and there will just be some light drizzly rain on and off for many areas of the UK. Still fairly mild though, temperatures not dipping much below 10 degrees quite widely. Now it does turn a bit clearer, but to the west of this weather front, so across Northern Ireland and Scotland, it will be a fine start to the weekend. And actually across parts of Wales, the southwest should brighten up quite quickly as well. Some cloud will likely linger for more eastern areas of England, southeast and Scotland as well. There could be a few showers around too, but it's still going to be feeling warm despite the less in the way of sunshine. Temperatures still climbing towards 23 degrees. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Greater Manchester, the A635 is closed each way along Ashton Old Road off Pottery Lane at Beswick after an accident. The M53 in Cheshire is partly blocked southbound by a breakdown between junctions 9 and 10 from Ellesmere Port to Little Stanley, causing delays. On the M6 in Warwickshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound. There's an accident not far after junction 3 at Coventry. It's just the inside lane that's open past the scene, causing queues. In Worcestershire, the A449 is blocked northbound by an accident near Chartley Lane in Horford, causing delays. In Hampshire on the A34, there's a lane closed northbound where someone's broken down from junction 9 of the M3, and the A33 at Winchester. Buses replaced trains between Exeter, St David's and Plymouth because of an incident. And in Cornwall, the A30 is partly blocked eastbound by a breakdown towards the Barnwell Lane roundabout in Penzance, causing queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're just hurtling towards 20 to 11 here on Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Ben Leo and Nana Akweer with you this morning, and some emails from you on gbnews.com/your say, not least from Christine. Good morning to you. You say about Brexit, it had nothing to do with Farage. David Cameron went to Brussels and allowed them to walk all over him, just like Theresa May, then tried to act the tough guy and offered a referendum. He then lost his bottle again and resigned. He was a political coward.
What have we got here? This one on the forecast for a Labour sizable victory. This is from Jim Siri. Jim says, forecast Labour win with a sizable majority. Farage, leader of the opposition. Rayner, supported by Corbynistas, displaces Starmer within 12 months. Labour lose election in 2029. Farage leads a coalition government. That's Jim's prediction.
Goodness me. And imagine a Trump government in the US as well.
Gosh, yeah.
Absolute scenes. Honey Badger, you say SNP leader John Swinney should not have been on the debate last night. They should have put out a separate programme for Scottish viewers. It seemed bizarre he was on when we can't vote for him in England.
Yeah, well, you know, fair enough. I think they had to... There's probably a balance of how much you have to give each person on the debate, so that's probably why.
I mean, what was bizarre, that you had John Swinney there talking to half the country that he couldn't, you know, nobody could vote for him, and yet Nigel Farage wasn't there, who is now polling in second place. I mean, that was bizarre.
That was odd. And this is from Darren C. He says, why is it that so many lifelong Labour voters are either on benefits or support the culture of benefits and handouts rather than work or handout to supplement part-time working? These people have no understanding of the economy, no pride, and most likely do not care who pays their life as they can keep receiving. I don't think that's true, Darren. A lot of people, I mean, you know, if over half the country is supporting Labour, Darren, I doubt that's true. They're not all on handouts. A lot of them are working hard as well, and I just don't think that's true. But I read it, Darren, because I felt that, you know, it was your thoughts.
There's certainly a few champagne socialists with a couple of quid in their pocket who are voting for Labour. And just one more very quickly, Dave, you say, in the absence of any responsible government, the people should have more say. We need more referendums. Bring them on, you say.
How do you think? I mean, you saw what happened with the last one, where they didn't want to do what we said. Then they obfuscated and tried to change even the rules. And then, I don't know what was going on there. But do you remember Brexit, the embarrassment that it became as the world watched our parliament?
Oh, goodness
so
me.
that was
Brexit means
like
Brexit,
comedy.
Theresa May would say.
Oh, that was terrible. The Kit Neal going back and forth to the EU, capitulating to everything they wanted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
Look, back in London, NHS patients, I don't know if you've heard this, Nana, they've allegedly had their names, dates of births and other private information published online by a gang of hackers who targeted a blood testing firm in London hospitals.
Now, Russian group Killen has claimed responsibility for the attack. They previously threatened to publish stolen data if they were not paid £40 million.
40 million, big ones. Well, joining us now is GB News reporter Charlie Peters. An extraordinary story, Charlie. £40 million in order to return this stolen data. How do we know for sure that it's Russian-based hackers?
Well, the Cybersecurity Centre, the National Cybersecurity Centre, said so on June the 4th, and we have to trust our national security institutions when it comes to this analysis. It also helps that Killen have said that they did it. They've said in a statement that it was them. They openly are based in Russia, and they've carried out several attacks like this in the past, but not typically on Russian political aims. So it's highly unlikely that they're linked to the Russian government. This is a ransomware, profit-motivated cyber-attacking group. Previously, they've targeted Serbia's sole electricity supply, a Chinese manufacturing giant. Those are key Russian allies. They've also hit the Australian court system. And this is their second big attack in the UK, because in March, potentially a test for this bigger ransomware attack on the NHS, they also hit The Big Issue, that magazine sold by the homeless on the streets. So quite a significant shift towards European targets taking place. And this has been one of the worst cyber attacks in British history. Over 1,000 GP or hospital appointments have been cancelled since June the 3rd, when this cyber attack took place. And the nature of ransomware is such that you can both deny access to a system, which is what has happened here. They've targeted Synovis, a third-party organisation that provides pathology IT services to several NHS London trusts. That means getting your blood tests, getting other crucial information approved before appointments. But they can also steal data. And last night, it seems, they published some 400 gigabytes of private information online. It's also, we understand, including some information on the financial arrangements between Synovis and the NHS. The NHS say they're taking this very seriously, and an analysis of the data is underway as we speak.
Well, look, apart from the ransoms of 40 million, which I doubt they're going to get, and they must know that's unlikely. Governments don't pay out in this way. I don't know if they ever have. But what is the benefit to them? Because they've got this data. What are they going to do with it? Why is it worth something? How can they monetise it if they don't get their ransom, the 40 million, which has any government ever paid?
Well, we're not sure about Western governments. Not that we've been, they've published about this. But earlier this year, United Health Group, a major American healthcare organisation, reportedly paid over $22 million to react to a ransomware attack. And I think what's really crucial about this particular attack is that it's a third party that's being targeted. A weakness in the armour, potentially, of Britain's cyber security is that they haven't targeted the NHS directly, which has that overall state control. They've targeted a public-private partnership through Synovis. So that hasn't got the same sort of authority under it with the state as you might if they were targeting the NHS directly. Why is it so valuable? Why can they charge tens of millions of pounds to get it? Because this sort of private data is vital for the success of healthcare operations. When this attack took place on June the 3rd, the next day, the blood test assessments and that process went back to pen and paper. People who are waiting for organ transplants were cancelled. That's a vital service that has to be achieved. And so they know that there is a very significant price tag attached to that. I mean, and we know it's still going on. I mean, just personally, I went to one of these NHS trusts last week for a routine checkup, and my consultant said, both in person and in writing, they wouldn't be able to do any blood tests, well over a week since this attack took place, because of the ongoing cyber security situation. So it's not been fully resolved. Over 1,000 cancellations. This is one of the worst cyber attacks the UK has ever faced. And there are serious questions now, not only for the NHS and the National Cyber Security Centre, but I think really for the government wider. How are they going to get this sorted, and how are they going to get NHS operations back up and running?
Well, also, how do they protect themselves from future incidents of it as well? Because it seems that anyone can hack in and get into things like that. How do you protect yourself? Can you even protect yourself from this? I doubt it.
Well, the Cyber Security Centre have got so many training strategies and procedures to deal with it, but this is a sophisticated attack.
Well, Charlie Peters, thank you very much.
Thanks, Charlie. Extraordinary story. Right, up next, we'll tell you how the Prince of Wales is celebrating his 42nd birthday today. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Stick with us.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Today we've got two fantastic individuals who have invented a teddy bear to help children who are suffering with mental health.
Yes, so Lynn and Samantha Crilly came up with the idea for the Trouble Muncher toy following Samantha's own battle with an eating disorder and OCD.
Yes, the teddy comes with a notepad and encourages its owners to write down what's troubling them, and then they can pop the note into the rucksack on the bear's back.
I struggled with mental health most of my life, actually, and oh no, it's fine. I've got one. I feel quite sorry for you. But and one thing I always did was message my mum, and it was a thought disassociation kind of technique. I would message you. Even now, I message you thoughts that come into my mind, but massively when I was younger. And I thought, what happens if you're younger and you don't have this?
Yeah, and I think in today's technology-fueled world, I think we go back to basics, and it just helps them to process by writing it down. Everything's so instant these days.
So it's like an indirect way of telling your parents how you're feeling, what you're going through. Such a great idea. What's the feedback been from parents who have got a trouble muncher for their kids? What you've got any stories?
It's been really good. In one household, he sits on the kitchen side, and I think during the day, the parents, the children put their worries in, or at night, and then they know that their parents will look at it during the day. And it's gone into some schools as well.
You'd imagine you'd want one of these trouble munchers in every classroom and in every school up and down the country, because children who are being bullied, for example, who feel like they can't tell their parents, they're too embarrassed to talk about it. This is such an important tool, isn't it, for children to communicate that?
Yeah, well, you were saying Mum's a mental health counsellor, and you had a young child who had Snapchat AI. So you talk to an AI in Snapchat, and that's what they talk to now.
The People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good morning. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? Just coming up to 10 to 11.
What are you doing?
Yes, I'm Nana Queer. This is Ben Leo. We've got Big Ben between us.
I thought you were talking about me then.
Not you, mate, no.
I am taller than you today.
Well, you're always taller than everybody.
Yeah.
Is anyone shorter than you? There isn't.
I'm just under 6'2".
Are you?
Anyway, I like to, just FYI, I like to be taller than my co-host because I feel not so emasculated.
Well, I can sit...
I look young enough anyway, let alone being shorter than my co-host.
He looks like he's my son. Son from another lover, I think. Right, happy birthday to Prince William. It's his birthday today.
Happy birthday to you, Prince William. He celebrates his 42nd birthday today after his trip to Germany last night to watch England play in the Euros.
Oh, dismal match that, wasn't it? Though that performance last night wasn't much of a birthday present, sadly.
No, and on social media, his wife, Kate, the Princess of Wales, posted this photo, writing, "Happy birthday, Papa. We all love you so much."
It's like they're all jumping off a trampoline or something. Or do you think there's superimposed images above a bush?
Oh, no more photo doctoring, please, with the...
Oh, yeah, let's not do that. Right, let's speak to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, you are fresh from Ascot,
Royal Ascot,
yeah, no top hat or tails for me today, I'm afraid.
Shame. All the viewers will be let down.
I know, I'm sorry. But, I mean, it was a great day yesterday, but not so good for the King and the Queen because their horse lost quite spectacularly. Gilded Water in King George V Stakes. They won last year in the King George V Stakes, so it was a little bit disappointing for anyone who'd bet on the King's horse. But it did have the same jockey and trainer as Desert Hero did last year, which is the horse that won. But a bit disappointing, but they all looked incredible, of course.
So where did it come, their horse?
12th. I think it was 12th out of 19, so not great. These are pictures from Tuesday when the King and Queen arrived at Ascot in the royal procession. The Queen was wearing a white outfit yesterday, but it was just an amazing atmosphere because it's just the best of British and lots of people drinking Pimm's and champagne.
Do you think they enjoy themselves at these events? Because they have to be quite serious and, you know, can't really let themselves go.
Yeah, well, I think they do let themselves go a bit, actually, because I think I think they're far more relaxed. You see them kind of mingling with the grace and good of British society in front of people. They don't have many palace staff with them. It's kind of a good day out for them. And then you see them in the royal box and they kind of forget they're being filmed, I think, sometimes because they're screaming at whatever horse they want to win, and you get these fantastic photographs of members of the royal family.
Well, there's that famous one of the late Queen Elizabeth II when her horse won at Royal Ascot and she's being congratulated by her royal horse trainer, and she looks... I've never seen a picture like it. She looks, you know, just emphatically beaming. Her hands are clenched together. She's celebrating. It was a great picture.
They're really invested in it, and the royal family, of course, King and Queen in particular, own many of the late Queen's race horses. So it's quite poignant for them as well.
That was the late Queen. She was in that film where they did a whole documentary about her life, and they filmed her at Ascot, and she was overjoyed when her horses were winning and everything. It's wonderful. So they're very, very serious about Ascot.
They certainly are very serious, but I think a lot of people are just there for a jolly old good day out. And whether you're wearing top hats and tails in the royal enclosure, or you were just having a picnic in one of the car parks, it looked like everybody was having a really good time.
So it was a great day yesterday at Ascot, but Prince William was in Germany last night for England's second group game in the Euros. That wasn't so good.
Not so good. It's a draw, wasn't it? 1-1. But he was sat next to the King of Denmark, so it was a nice little power of soft diplomacy there, keeping the peace, no rivalry between the two sides. So it was a really lovely image that Kensington Palace posted online of the King of Denmark, Prince William.
It's his birthday today.
It is his birthday. It certainly is his birthday. Another beautiful picture we've got from Princess Catherine with the three children taken in Norfolk last month. There you go, on the sand dunes on the Norfolk coast of the three children and Prince William.
Are they really jumping that high?
I think they are. I mean, they're jumping onto sand, so it's not going to be too hard a fall, is it? I think it's absolutely a real photograph.
It's like they're about to jump onto that bush.
I know. Well, it's the most we're jumping over the bush, Nana, aren't they? I mean, we'll slide down the sand dunes, but it's the most informal yet brilliant photograph I've ever seen.
So where's the photographer then, if they're jumping over the bush?
So the princess would have been like at the bottom of the sand dune, pointing the camera upwards.
Stop trying to expose the royals.
No, I'm not.
Just
I love them. I love them. I think they're amazing.
Yeah, and I think it just shows the intimate relationships between William and his 3 children.
Yeah,
and a lovely message.
Those Norfolk beaches look amazing. They've posted a couple of pictures. One of William and the kids from behind, I think she posted a few days back.
That was for Father's Day.
Looks serene. Well, Cameron Walker will report, so thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Right, well, loads more still to come, including updates on the 5th day of the search on missing teenager Jay Slater.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Annie, how's your weather?
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News. Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Another fairly fine day for many of us, sunny spells and still feeling pretty warm in the sunshine, but there is some rain on the way for this evening. That's going to be moving in from the west. It's as a result of this weather front pushing into parts of Northern Ireland and the far northwest of Scotland later on this afternoon. And ahead of it, cloud will build across much of Wales into the southwest of Cornwall and Devon too. Further east, though, it should stay fairly dry and bright, and here is where it's going to feel very warm in the June sunshine once again. Highs of 24 degrees, quite likely. We could see a 25 degrees across some southeastern areas later on this afternoon. But further west, the cloud is building this afternoon, so it will turn quite a bit cloudier with potentially a burst of heavier rain, particularly across western areas of Scotland, the Northern Isles as well, starting to see some rain by this evening. Across the far southeast, though, of Scotland, it will remain likely dry this evening. Northeastern England as well, seeing a dry end to the day. A little bit of cloud around, hazier sunshine, but still feeling quite warm out there. But across the far southwest, a spell of heavier rain will push through in the early evening. Now, this band of rain pushes eastwards throughout this evening into central and eastern areas by tomorrow morning. And again, we've got a lot of cloud around with this. We won't see too much in the way of rain. I think it will be fairly light, any of that rain, but there is going to be a considerable amount of cloud around across much of England and Wales to start the day. So it will be another mild start, but it could just turn a little bit fresher across parts of Northern Ireland first thing tomorrow. That's because it's going to be a bright start. We're between weather fronts across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland first thing tomorrow, but the next weather front will move in later on in the day. But elsewhere, after a cloudier start, it will turn brighter as the day goes on. There's a risk of the odd shower across eastern areas, but for most of us, a dry day with temperatures in the low 20s. See you later on. Bye-bye. That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's still time to win our Summer Spectacular with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Good morning, it's 11 o'clock on Britain's Newsroom with me, Nana Akwe and Ben Leo.
Very good morning to you. Now, fears grow for Tenerife teenager. Fresh leads, including a new bombshell video, emerge in the search for the 19-year-old British partygoer Jay Slater, as his friends this morning accused Spanish police of not working hard enough to find him.
And in other news, Russia attacks British hospitals. Hackers have forced the cancellation of more than 1,000 NHS operations and 2,000 appointments, including those of babies and children, and they've demanded a huge £40 million ransom to return stolen data.
And you bet I'm angry. The Prime Minister says he's furious about senior Tory party aides allegedly wagering bets on the date of the general election that would have netted them tens of thousands of pounds.
I want to be crystal clear that if anyone has broken the rules, they should face the full force of the law, and that's what those investigations are there to do, and I hope that they do their work as quickly and as thoroughly as possible.
So Keir Starmer praises Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, stunned the nation last night by saying his old colleague Jeremy Corbyn would have made a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson.
And fake Ozempic alert. A global warning has been issued about fake versions of the weight loss drug being sold across Britain. What do you reckon of Ozempic? Would you have a few jab?
No, I don't think you should take it ever, and I'm certainly not going to do it. No, I actually feel slightly incensed that I've worked so hard to stay fit and strong and healthy and so on and so forth. Now there's a pill you can pop that just helps you disband the fat or takes away your hunger, which is probably the best way to deal with it, isn't it?
My concern is about the side effects. We don't know what the long-term side effects are. I think there are some known short-term side effects, and it's similar to men taking steroids. It's kind of like you're taking drugs to make yourself appear healthy and fit, when on the inside you're actually just rotting away. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, but with Ozempic, what it does is it makes you think that you're full, so it stops you from eating. So when people who are overweight say it's not because I eat too much, this drug literally proves that that is what the cause is for the majority of people overweight.
Well, not for me. I need to eat more. I need to eat more, not less.
Yeah. Right, well, we'd love to hear what you think. As ever, send us your views. Post your comments, gbnews.com/your say.
But first, here's your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. It's just coming up to 3 minutes past 11. The top stories from the newsroom this morning, and we'll start with just the latest breaking developments coming to us in the case we've been discussing of Police Chief Constable Nick Adderley, who we now know has been dismissed after he was found guilty of misconduct today. Nick Adderley had claimed to have had a glittering naval career, but a panel has concluded he in fact lied about the extent of his military achievements. As I say, he has now been dismissed without notice and has also been placed on the police barred list. A British tourist has been stabbed to death outside a nightclub in Spain. Police were called to reports of a fight around 30 miles from Barcelona in the early hours of this morning. The 31-year-old man died outside the Oxygen nightclub, while another person was taken to hospital. That nightclub remains cordoned off, but we understand no arrests have been made at this stage. Meanwhile, a gang of cybercriminals has published sensitive NHS data online, stolen from a blood testing company. Overnight, the Russian cybercrime group known as Quillin shared nearly 400 gigabytes of private information, including patient names, dates of birth, NHS numbers and even blood test results. The Health Service says it's now investigating the full extent of the data breach. Election news, and the Prime Minister has now broken his silence on allegations of Conservative election betting. 4 people with links to the Tory party are being investigated by the Gambling Commission, including Laura Saunders, the wife of the Tories' campaign director, and Craig Williams, another Conservative candidate, who has also admitted to what he called an error of judgment after placing a bet on when the election would take place. While speaking last night on BBC Question Time's Leaders Special, Rishi Sunak said that any lawbreakers in the party will be booted out.
I was incredibly angry to learn of these allegations. It's a really serious matter. It's right that they're being investigated properly by the relevant law enforcement authorities, including, as Fiona said, a criminal investigation by the police. I want to be crystal clear that if anyone has broken the rules, they should face the full force of the law, and that's what those investigations are there to do, and I hope that they do their work as quickly and as thoroughly as possible.
Sir Keir Starmer has told voters that Jeremy Corbyn would have made a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. The Labour leader was facing a grilling from members of the public alongside Rishi Sunak, Sir Ed Davey and the SNP's John Swinney at last night's BBC Question Time special in York. The Liberal Democrats were pushed on their record during the coalition government with the Conservatives, while the SNP insisted independence is essential if Scotland is to become a fairer and more equal country.
I honestly believe that Scotland would be a stronger country and would have better prospects if we were an independent country. That's been my view, my honest view over my entire adult life. But I'm a Democrat, so I accept that we can't be an independent country until the people of Scotland vote for us to be an independent country.
The hunt for British teenager Jay Slater, who went missing in Tenerife, has now entered its 5th day. Helicopters and rescue dogs have now joined the search across the mountainous area of the island. The 19-year-old disappeared after telling a friend that he didn't know where he was and needed water before then beginning an 11-hour trek back to his hotel. We understand that he'd been staying in an area of the north of the island with people that he'd met on a night out after attending a music festival. UK retail sales improved last month with a rebound for clothing and furniture shops. Figures from the Office for National Statistics show the number of items purchased in May were up 2.9%, as compared to 1.8% the month before. A global alert over fake versions of the drug Ozempic has been issued by the World Health Organization. The medicine has become popular as a weight loss jab, despite its main purpose being the treatment of type 2 diabetes. The WHO says counterfeit versions pose a danger to health and will not help people to lose weight. TikTok is launching a media literacy hub to help users recognise fake news ahead of the general election. The social media company says it will cover topics such as how to spot misinformation and give tips for consuming a range of balanced news. It follows a decision to roll out a dedicated general election centre on the platform here in the UK. And the Princess of Wales has wished Prince William a happy 42nd birthday with a personal message online saying, "We all love you so much." A photo taken by Princess Catherine was posted alongside that message. You can see that photo here, showing the Prince of Wales and their 3 children jumping in the air and holding hands. And finally, some sports news for you. England boss Gareth Southgate has admitted that the team need to raise their levels if they're to live up to their tag as favourites to win Euro 2024. The team were booed by some supporters at full time after yesterday's disappointing 1-1 draw with Denmark. England now need a point in their final Group C game against Slovenia to guarantee their place in the knockout rounds. Those are the headlines. The next update in half an hour. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, though, it's back to Ben and Nana.
11:08 on GB News, Britain's Newsroom. Ben Leo here and Nana Aquir. Emails flying in about all the stories we've covered today. Steve,
yes.
good morning. You say, oh my God, Nana, the bush the royal family is jumping over is grass and is probably on top of a sandhill. Have you never been to the beach?
I have been to the beach. What's his name? What's this guy's name?
Steve.
Steve, I've been to the beach many times, but to me, it just looked a bit odd. It looked to me like they're jumping on a trampoline and someone had superimposed the bush there. Yeah, so the bush is there. They're up there. Where do you need to be to take that shot?
It wouldn't surprise me if there was a trampoline. I don't think it's a bad thing.
I've been to the beach. You have trampolines on the beach? Come on, Steve. If you have never been to one either. Right. Maxine said this. She was talking about, because we talked about the Question Time, where Keir Starmer said that Boris Johnson would make, Jeremy Corbyn would make a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. And she said, well, I saw Keir last night, but didn't hear him say Jeremy Corbyn would have been a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. Why doesn't GB News play the actual clip? That's because there are rules on what clips and how long you can play them for. So that is why. So we're reiterating it word for word from the newspapers, and also some of us saw it, so we know what was said. So that's why, Maxine, just so you know.
Yeah, we can only use so much, unfortunately. Charlie, you say Sir Keir Starmer backed Jeremy Corbyn to the hilt, did not have the guts to go against him, all to save his own career. A political coward. Strong.
Right,
strong stuff.
Lots of things. I mean, I suppose he might argue that he was supporting his party that he was at the time, and so therefore he's still in the Labour Party. But listen, don't forget, tonight from 7 p.m. on GB News, Vote 2024, the leaders. Our political editor, Christopher Hope, will be interviewing Sir Keir Starmer with questions from GB News viewers.
Yes, we've also asked Rishi Sunak, Ed Davey and Nigel Farage, of course, who will appear before the end of the campaign. So all that to come.
Right, but first, the search for missing teen Jay Slater has entered its 5th day in Tenerife after he was last heard from on Monday morning.
A friend of his has hit out at Spanish police, claiming they, quote, aren't doing enough to find him. And the 19-year-old called a friend to say he was lost with no water and his phone was only on 1% battery.
Well, joining us now is senior reporter for the Mail Online, Nick Pisa. Nick, welcome. Good to talk to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Right, Nick, we can't actually see you at the moment, but we will hope to get you up. But we can hear you. Nick, so first of all, talk to us about this, because a lot of people would listen and think, how could somebody go missing when we've already got a sort of ETA, or a pinpoint as to where they were? What's the difficulty of that terrain, and why is it so difficult to find Jay?
Well, it's a mountainous area of northwest Tenerife, about 20 miles from the nightclub which he left in the early hours of Monday morning. We know, having spoken to friends of his and to his mother, that he got into a car with 2 British guys that he'd met at this after party down in Playa de las Americas, and they had driven off up to the village of Masca, where these 2 guys had rented an Airbnb, and he in fact sent pictures of himself on the doorstep of that Airbnb to his mother and to his friend Lucy. We know this was around about 7:30 in the morning. Now, I've been up there. The terrain is quite rugged. It's very mountainous. Yesterday, actually, the weather was quite windy. It was cold. It was actually drizzling at one point, which hampered the search from the air. The Guardia Civil who were up there told me that they couldn't use a helicopter or use drones because of that visibility. But they are back up there today. The weather is a lot better. It's improved. It's clear. And they are hoping to get the helicopter up there to look over a canyon, which is up in the mountains, and which is the last spot where Jay's mobile phone was picked up. As you said in the introduction there was 1% left on the battery when he called his friend Lucy to say he was lost. He was in the mountains and he was going to try and walk back. But it's a journey, as I say, of 19 miles along a main road. Once you get off the mountain, you join the main road, but it's certainly a good 10, 11-hour journey. Because, as I say, he told Lucy and his mother he'd missed the bus and he wanted to walk home. But since then, not one single sighting of him.
And Nick, you were, of course, in Greece recently covering the Michael Mosley case for the Mail Online. What echoes of that case does this have? And also, have you spoken to Jay's family on the island? I understand Debbie, his mother, is there.
Yes, that's right. Well, in answer to your first question, Ben, yes, I was in Greece. The situation, in fact, I was talking about this yesterday with Debbie and with the friends who are out there. The terrain is very different, and in Greece it was far more exposed, it was far more remote. It was desolate. There was no shelter at all. And the heat there in Greece was unbearable. We're talking 40-odd degrees. But up here, the train where he went missing is slightly higher, so it's obviously a lot cooler. And I say the weather yesterday, it was cold, it was raining, it was drizzly. So I don't think extreme heat up there is an issue. At night, though, it does get cold up there. It was about a degree or so above freezing the other night, and not much different last night as well. So I think that's the key issue there, maybe the temperature, but also water. He said he didn't have any water. But again, this is where it's all very mysterious, very odd. I mean, it's not a remote area. There is a road that winds up that mountain to Masca where he went and drops down the other side of the island. It's a busy road. It's a viewpoint. It's popular with hikers. It was 8:50 in the morning, so there was traffic up there. It's difficult to understand where exactly he's got to.
Yeah, it does seem odd, doesn't it? It's just, it's not like... sorry, Nick, thank you very much. That's Nick. He's a senior reporter for me.
No problem.
It does seem very odd, doesn't it? That, in such a place where there's shelter, the weather's not too hot.
He was of course in just shorts and a t-shirt that he'd been wearing at that music festival. I read this morning in the newspapers, apparently the temperature in the mountainous areas where he was goes as low as 1 degree at night time. Very warm, of course, in the daytime. And his mother, Debbie, this morning, as Nick just mentioned, he said he'd spoken to her yesterday. She was suggesting maybe that he had come to some deliberate harm. Maybe he'd been kidnapped. I mean, there's no proof of that yet, but that's what his mother is fearing now at this point.
OK, well, let's bring in the former head of Lambeth Missing Persons Unit, Mike. Mike, thank you very much for joining us. It feels like that we're hearing more and more about tourists who go missing in foreign lands. And, we've had Michael Mosley, of course, this young lad now. Why do you think that people tend to sort of go off like that when they're somewhere they don't know?
Well, I think, in this case, you've got a young lad who's been to a nightclub. We don't know what he'd taken in the nightclub, any substances, had he had a drink, what was he thinking? And sometimes it's just a lack of respect of the territory, unfamiliar to territory, thinking you can cope with the heat and the distance when you obviously can't. And no matter how young and fit you are, and we can see the terrain, it's very rugged. But the other difference with Greece, of course, is that there's also almost forest areas there. So could he have sat down for a rest, and could let's hope he's still there and very, very dehydrated. But the tragedy is that he's been missing for so long now. I just can't see that, and I really do feel for his mum and his family.
In missing persons cases, in the UK at least, where of course you've worked, how significant is it when the days go on? I mean, every 24 hours, the chances just plummet, don't they?
The chances just do plummet. I mean, most people go missing are back within a few hours. And when you look at this, you look at, firstly, has somebody gone missing, and do they want to be missing? Is it deliberate? Well, this is obviously not the case here, because he's made a phone call, he's told people where he is, and he's only got 1% of battery left. Has he been snatched, taken by somebody? Is there some criminal element to this? Well, the facts are, in that remote area, I don't imagine there's many bandits wandering around looking to grab any. I don't see where that could have come into it. And then the third thing, of course, is he's come to some harm. And I think the police are obviously working on that third theory, and I know they've been criticised, but we can see on the police all over the world are hampered by the weather, but they're using drones, they're using helicopters, they've got the fire brigade out also assisting in the search. So I do think the Spanish police are making best efforts. I mean, tourism is the mainstay of the island, so they will not want anything to cloud over that. So I really do think the Spanish police are making efforts, and there's been calls for the British police to assist, but I really don't know what the British police could add to it, and you obviously can't just storm over there and start taking over. So I don't know what else the British police could do. The Spanish police and the park rangers will know the terrain, but it is a very big area, and if somebody's sat under a tree into a wooded area, they're not so easy to spot.
So in your experience over this period of time, do you often find people after this kind of...
I sadly don't think so. We can only hope in our hearts and for his family that he is alive and well, but the fact that you've got no water, no proper clothing in an area which is extremes of temperature, I think we may have a sad conclusion here. Hopefully not.
OK, Mike. Sorry, did you have one more question?
I just had briefly, what's your advice to people? I mean, you know, you deal with missing people all the time. Somebody's out on their own somewhere. What advice would you give?
Well, make sure your phone's charged. That's number one, because you can be found straight away if you've got a phone. Don't go into remote places. I mean, people go to Tenerife to go to the clubs, the beaches, the pubs, the bars. And if you go into a place like this remote area, make sure you go in a group.
Yeah.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Former head of Lambeth Missing Persons Unit, Mike Neville. It was this lad's first holiday abroad. He was 18 years old. I remember, like many people have done very stupid things, not just abroad, at home, on your first big night out, when drink gets involved. You know, you have to really feel for him. But fingers crossed. We're going to keep you updated with this story all throughout the day. His family, of course, are on Tenerife now. His friends are there looking. And hopefully, as Nick Pease said, the senior reporter from Mail Online, today, possibly, we may get some more news as they search this last place, a canyon he described it as.
Well, let's hope they find him alive. Right, still to come, we'll be talking about the Nan Zone. What's that about? You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The Princess of Wales has said she's excited by a new report on prioritising early childhood, a cause, as we know, that she's closely associated with.
Yes, the task force findings claim that the UK could reap £45.5 billion in economic benefits if firms prioritise early childhood.
Well, let's talk about this now with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Good morning, Cameron.
Good morning.
I suppose it's characteristically Catherine, isn't it, to say she doesn't want to distract from this report by sort of people talking about her health. But we should start probably by saying she said she's not feeling well enough to come and talk about this in public, but sort of saying she's watching it, keeping a close eye from behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely. This should not be seen as a return to work by the Princess of Wales, but I have been told she's A, read the report and B, been briefed on it. But this all stems really from her work when she started being a working member of the royal family, where she was working closely with people suffering from addiction, mental health problems. And what she found is all of these issues tend to stem from a poor start in life, so the first 5 years of a child's life. So in January 2023, she set up Shaping Us, this awareness campaign for the early years. 2 months later, she convened the Business Task Force, so 8 members of big businesses across the UK, and over a generation, that could add, as they claim, more than £40 billion to the UK economy each year. We spoke to Peter Grigg yesterday. He's the chair of Home Starts UK, a charity which supports young families. Let's hear what he said about the Princess's role in this.
She's been a real driving force behind the report and everything it's done. And when we've spent time with the Royal Foundation, what it does, it reminds everyone that this is really important work and early childhood matters, that more businesses should get involved, that more charities are out there for people who want to do more to support families and children. So it's been a wonderful experience.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere. Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. 11:23, Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Ben Leo, and Nana Akua. And by the way, if you're wondering why we're in slightly different environments today, it's because we are in our Westminster studio, because Paddington, where we normally broadcast this show from, is having a bit of a spring makeover.
Yes, they're currently now smashing that breakfast bar into smithereens.
I think Andrew Pearce has got his paintbrush out and
and the sofas.
So when Bev and Andrew are back on Monday, you'll have a shiny new Paddington studio and it will look even better than
Bring
before.
me the blowtorch for the sofas. Sorry, that's what I was talking about.
Not for your colleagues.
No,
the sofas.
Right, the sofas. Right. But of course, today we go to Crawley.
Hi, I'm Michael Decker. I'm in my 60s and I live in beautiful Crawley. Issues that are important to me this time are UK manufacturing, housing, and of course, Gaza. Since the early 80s, I've grown and typically sold companies. I started out as a Thatcher voter. I thought that she was good for the country, the Tories were good for the country. After the first Gulf War in the 90s, I moved leftwards. The Green Party obviously has got green in its name. That's attractive, not least because I'm a vegetarian Tesla driver. But in all seriousness, they are saying we will recognise Palestine. We will not sell arms to Israel. Sunak always talks about growth, but we don't make anything anymore. We make Barber jackets, whiskey, you know, that's pretty much about it. We've got to get back to manufacturing. Housing, we have to have more housing, particularly social housing. Most of it was sold off. We need to be building. It's going to be my first vote ever for the Green Party. Yes, it's a protest vote, but I'm voting for them to do well in the next election, because I think that when people see that people are voting for the Green Party in this election, next time they will think, well, actually, maybe they are viable for government.
Interesting.
A Thatcherite turned socialist. I mean, I never understand how that happens.
He's voting Greens now.
Yeah. Well, he describes himself as a socialist.
Yeah.
Very bizarre. How can you be a conservative? I've said it lots of times before. I think your political allegiances is somehow, you know, inherent in your makeup, your education, your upbringing. Yeah.
Not necessarily. It might be that they're doing the thing that you want them to do, so you're going to go with them irrespective of any of that.
Well, I just don't get how you can be a conservative one minute and then a socialist the next. It's just bizarre. But anyway.
Well, I think you can. You can be a bit of both. But joining us in the studio to discuss all things news, broadcaster and journalist Tom Neeson, and also author and broadcaster Amy Nicole-Turner. Right, I'm going to start with the Bronte sisters being included in the LGBT event because of their apparently androgynous pen names. It's in the Telegram.
Yes, it is. This is they've been included in LGBT events because they used men's name. Now they use men's names, not because they were, what's the phrase I'm looking for here? Genderqueer. No, there were women who wanted to get their work published, and back in the day, it was so misogynistic, the publishing industry, as well as every other industry. To do that, you had to use a male pen name. Nothing to do with their sexuality. Full stop. End of story. Amy, take it away.
It's been hijacked.
What's genderqueer, by the way?
Genderqueer?
Yes.
Genderqueer... Where you're questioning your gender?
What does that mean?
Genderqueer.
Hey, don't come for me. That's that exact definition. I think possibly it's exploring your gender identity.
Right.
And there's nothing to suggest that they didn't explore their gender identity. There's nothing definitive. There's no explicit answer to whether the Bronte sisters explored their gender identity. So maybe that's how they scraped them into the barrel.
What do you think about this, though?
Interestingly, last year, Lord Tennyson was named the historical figure of the year, despite no evidence that he had any homosexual relationships. So they've got previous for this, but I guess their argument might be, well, nobody said definitively back then whether they were exploring their gender because it wasn't really the done thing. And there are interpretations that in the Bronte stories that maybe they did.
We need to cross live now to Rishi Sunak, who's speaking at the Welsh Conservatives Manifesto launch.
Our country's future is in danger. I know you are frustrated with our party, frustrated with me, but do not let Labour waltz into office without scrutinising them, without seeing what their policies would mean for our country and your family's security. Do you really know what you're going to get with Labour? A government must make long-term decisions. But how can Labour when they've changed their mind, or claim to have, on nearly every issue? 4 years ago, Keir Starmer ran for Labour leader, promising to raise income tax on the top 5% of earners, to abolish universal credit, to scrap tuition fees, to nationalise the utility companies and to defend free movement. Now, Starmer now says that he's changed his mind on all these things. But how can you trust someone who changes their mind on so many fundamental issues? How do you know that if it wasn't politically expedient, he wouldn't just change his mind all over again? Now, his constant U-turns show two things: that he was wrong before
and that he hasn't even the courage of his own past lack of convictions. This is a man who tried to overturn the result of the Brexit referendum, who twice urged everyone to make Jeremy Corbyn Prime Minister, and who ran on a series of pledges to be Labour leader that he cynically then abandoned. My friends, because he has such a past, he doesn't deserve to decide your future. Now, I understand, of course, why people have their doubts about offering us their support again. The last few years have been really tough. COVID and the energy price spike caused by the war in Ukraine, and we have not got everything right. We have made mistakes. We've not delivered as much as we hoped to. But our economy is now turning a corner. The long, painful squeeze on your living standards over the past few years is over. Real wages have been rising for a year now almost, and inflation is back to target. When I became Prime Minister, inflation was in double digits, eating away at your pay packet, your savings. I promised to halve it, and we have done that and more, bringing it back to 2%. And we now have in place what we need for you to feel the benefits of our recovery. Low inflation, mortgage rates starting to fall, and taxes that are now coming down. Now, that's what you need, but to get that, you need a Conservative government. Now, Labour, in contrast, would put up everyone's taxes, taking the tax burden to the highest level it has ever been. Worse than that, they would charge every working family an extra £2,000 in higher council tax and other tax rises. Can you afford that? Can your neighbours? Can your loved ones? I tell you this, Labour will take more of your money every month, but we Conservatives will make sure that you have more money in your pocket every month. They'd also bring in Angela Rayner's French-style labour laws that would increase strikes, cost jobs and damage our economic recovery. And they'd quickly cave into the demands of the unions, sending inflation and borrowing straight back up. I warn you, don't fall into Labour's trap. Don't sleepwalk to July the 4th. I know you want to send us a message, but this is not a by-election. It will determine who governs our country for the next 5 years and potentially much longer. For if Labour get in, they will change the rules so it's much harder to ever get them out. They want to give 16-year-olds a vote not because they think on principle that they are adults, but because they think they'll vote for them. And once they have got power, they will change every rule to make sure that they keep it. We can't let that happen, friends, and it's only we Conservatives who can stop it. Now, I understand that people want to make clear to us, to me, their frustration. And I have heard you. But once you have handed Keir Starmer and Labour a blank cheque, you can't get it back. In Labour's Britain, if you work hard and try and set something aside for a rainy day, Keir Starmer thinks you're ripe for a tax rise. If you have a pension, Labour view that not as yours, but as something that they can raid whenever they need the money. If you're a homeowner, Labour will think nothing of making you spend thousands and thousands of pounds on net zero changes to your home. And as your Prime Minister, I can tell you that we live in a world of increasing threats. An axis of authoritarian states, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, are threatening our values, our interests, our security. And we must show our enemies that this country, with our allies, will stand strong. That is why I'm increasing our investment in defence to 2.5% of GDP. Because now is the time for bold action, not an uncertain Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. And that increase will allow us to stand up for our interests, deter our enemies, defend our values. Labour not only are not matching our commitment to raise defence spending. It's worse than that. The woman Keir Starmer wants to be Deputy Prime Minister of our country, and the man he wants to be Foreign Secretary, both voted against our nuclear deterrent, the ultimate guarantor of our security. It's clear that it's only we Conservatives, with our iron resolve, who you can trust to keep Britain safe. Now, there is a choice before you about Britain's future. I know the future that I want for our country. I want a Britain where those who work hard keep more of their own money, where people can send their children to state schools that deliver an education as good as anywhere in the Western world, where parents can be confident about what their children are being taught at school. I want a country where we can all get the medical treatment we need quickly from our brilliant NHS. A country where people are encouraged to start a business, where we have a culture of enterprise, where we take advantage of the opportunities of Brexit, where a new generation know the pride and security that comes with owning your own home, where parents and families are supported, and where pensioners have dignity and certainty in old age. I want a country where our borders are secure and immigration is under control. A country where we have the confidence of knowing that we are all on the same side. A country built on the values of aspiration, opportunity and security. Those are my values. They are this country's values. And friends, they are Conservative values. I cannot adequately express what my family and I owe this country. My grandmother came here with very little, and I stand before you as our Prime Minister. In no other country would my story be possible, and that is why I will always work as hard as I can for you and everyone. In the next 5 years, if you ask me to continue as your Prime Minister, I will do everything I can to deliver for you. I want to make Britain stronger, better, more secure. Ours is a great country with a proud past and a bright future. It is our duty, our responsibility, to take the bold action that will give you and your family the secure future that you deserve. That is what we stand for. That is what we are fighting for. And together, that is exactly what we are going to deliver.
So, Rishi Sunak talking there. He said quite a bit there. He has delivered low inflation. He talked about mortgage rates coming down, taxes falling, that we need the Conservatives, and that Labour will reverse all of that. Council tax rises in Wales. He talked about Labour will take more of your money every month. He also said, don't fall into Labour's trap. Don't sleepwalk into July the 4th. Once they've got power, they will change every rule to make sure they stay there. Once you've handed Keir Starmer the keys, you won't be able to get them back.
And Angela Rayner voted against the nuclear deterrent, which is, pretty interesting, bearing in mind last night, Sir Keir Starmer saying that, Jeremy Corbyn would have been a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. We're joined again by Dawn Newsom and Eamon Kell-Turner. Thoughts, Dawn, on that?
Can we just have the election now? I'm just listening to what everyone's saying and taking everything with a pinch. What was interesting about Rishi just now was he didn't mention the NHS in Wales, which is appalling. It's a 40% longer wait than it is in England. In Wales, you wait 21.8 weeks for a hospital appointment. In England, it's only 14.9 weeks. Look, only. I mean, it's not great, by the way. It's not great. But the Welsh have had Labour in power since, on and off, with coalitions here and there, since 2000. So they're not covering themselves in glory down in one. So it's interesting that Keir didn't mention the NHS, which is one thing I would have gone in heavier there.
Yeah, you missed a trick, do you think? Your thoughts, Eamon Kell-Turner, you heard him speak there. He said now it's time for bold action. Labour are not matching our pledge of defence spending, which is one of the main points.
I know, but the thing is, I think when you spend the whole time slating the other side, and you don't really have much to say for yourself, and everything everything.
Well, no, that was an actual point. That's an actual point he made there.
In defence of the Conservatives was almost excusing it, like, well, we could have done better, but, you know, COVID, we could have done better, but the war in Ukraine. He didn't actually say anything, any vision going forwards, and it was just a lot about, but this is what you'll get with Labour, and fear-mongering about Labour, which I always think is a sign of a losing battle, if that's what you have to resort to. But on the defence spending, well, we're going to have to spend a bit more, because over the last 15 years, defence has been underfunded. We've got the smallest army since the Napoleonic Wars. We know all that. So they've put the defence, they've put us in a more vulnerable position. So yeah,
defence
have to fix
an interesting one, because it never was a vote winner, defence spending, was it? It just wouldn't get the votes. But now it seems in the past year, of course, probably because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But some interesting comments on your say. Tansy, you say, it's sad. Rishi Sunak has a great message, but no one's listening to it. What a shame.
What's the message?
Well, he said that
Labour
I
will
want
tax you
Britain,
more, like a lie.
No, what he said, I want a Britain where those who work hard keep more of their money.
But he's overseen the highest tax burden in 75 years.
Well, let's be honest, there's been a pandemic. We've had wars, we've had a pandemic. I mean, that was unprecedented.
But that's the whole thing.
We've had two independent think tanks say that neither the Conservatives nor Labour, the plans that they have been fully funded out. They can't work out how they're going to afford it. The money has to come from somewhere. And neither the Conservatives or Labour are going to explain where this money is coming from.
Steve, you say, Rishi, we know why you called an early election, because you would have looked ridiculous when you couldn't get the planes to Rwanda. And in actual fact, he got loads of criticism yesterday online for calling this election at this time, because the Bank of England, of course, didn't decrease, or lower rather, interest rates, which probably will happen in August. Inflation is down to 2%. So you would have seen mortgage rates plummeting, I guess, between now and the end of the year. Why did he call it in July?
That is a $64,000 question.
He's sick of it.
Maybe someone had a bet on it. I don't know. I really have got no idea why he called it so.
Because all that's going to happen is that people are arguing is that Labour will possibly win based on the polls. They'll come in, inflation will fall even further, interest rates on mortgages will fall, energy bills will keep falling, and they'll just reap the rewards.
It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense.
It makes sense to those guys that put the bets on, though, because they'd get much better odds, get better payout, wouldn't they?
Well, I mean, for me, that whole betting saga is quite telling. You had these, I assume, same people who, I'm not sure if they've done anything illegal, I don't think they have, but, you know, allegedly betting on the date of the election. I guess these are the same people who advised him to go out into Downing Street on that lectern and get soaked in the rain, then go to the Titanic Quarter for the launch of the
exit sign.
Yeah, you know, symbolising the Conservative Party just, you know, sinking into the sea. Just gaff after gaff after gaff, all done by, I guess,
the Wales
same
football?
people.
We're talking about Welsh when he said, "Oh, you're looking forward to the Euros." We're fighting it.
It does make you wonder who is.
Mouse ears. Oh my God, so many. What a campaign!
Let's cross over to our political editor, Christopher Hope. Christopher. So Rishi Sunak has spoken again. Oh, I'm black.
No, you're not. Oh, yes, you are.
But no, sorry, Christopher. So Rishi Sunak has spoken. What are you hearing about what he said?
Well, it struck me, and hi Nana, hi Ben, it struck me how the personal nature there of his attacks on Keir Starmer. I think that's the change in tone from the campaign. Clearly the Tories are trying to target him personally. They're looking at him last night on that BBC audience question time on BBC One, when he said he would rather that, Keir Starmer said he'd rather that Jeremy Corbyn was our Prime Minister, not Boris Johnson. So setting aside all of Johnson's weaknesses, we know about them on personal level, but also you've got him, he did, of course, he led the efforts to get behind Ukraine against Russia in that war. He was very strong on the COVID vaccines. But despite all that, Keir Starmer did say eventually he would be a better Prime Minister, Corbyn, than Johnson. Look what we got. Johnson, a man who made massive promises, didn't keep them, then had to leave Parliament in disgrace. Yes, all that's true, but really, Jeremy Corbyn, the man who wouldn't push the nuclear button or say he would do so to defend this country's safety. So I thought the language there from Mr Sunak saying don't let the Labour Party waltz into office, that's very interesting. He's saying there, he argued that the Labour leader doesn't deserve to decide your future. Here's a man, said Rishi Sunak, who tried to overturn the result of the Brexit referendum, who twice urged everyone to make Jeremy Corbyn PM, who ran on a series of pledges to be Labour leader that he abandoned. All that is true. So what they're clearly going after at central office is the character of Sir Keir Starmer, who actually our voters trying to get into number 10, and does he deserve your support? That's clearly the new attack line from Conservative Central Office.
Might it not backfire on them, though, if they're focusing on personality? Because he did miss a few tricks, like, for example, he could have pointed out Keir Starmer, or the Labour Party, sorry's record in Wales with the NHS, but he didn't mention any of that.
Well, no, the record is poor in Wales. I mean, that's a pity. They'll often repeat that and look at the fact that some people in Wales have to go to England to use the NHS in England for their treatment. So they are the Tories do often point out a record of failure there. But yeah, I think they can clearly they're going after Starmer personally, and there is a case to be made that all he's done really is offer stability and no change after the chaos of the Tory years. And has he actually earned the right to this mega majority that these big MRP polls suggest he's getting? Maybe not. So clearly there's everything to play for. There's 13 days left now until we all go to the polls.
And Chris, just briefly, on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, and I'm sure others this morning, is Keir Starmer's comments about Jeremy Corbyn being potentially a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. Has that cut through? How's it been received down in Westminster and indeed across the country?
As I say, I think that's the point in which the Tories are trying to get onto, is that really true? And I'll be talking, in fact, to Sir Keir Starmer for GBNews today. That interview should go out at 7 p.m. tonight, so I'll be asking him those questions. You know, do you really think that about Jeremy Corbyn? And really, I mean, would you have trusted him with our safety and security, and not someone like Boris Johnson, who, despite his weaknesses, did support defence?
Well, Christopher, we shall look forward to that programme later on today. Still to come, though. Has summer finally arrived? There's sunshine across the country today. Is it here to stay? You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Of course it isn't.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Almost half of those seeking to have an affair are happier with their job than with their primary relationship. But what exactly does a cheater do for a living?
Well, medical assistants and nurses, surprisingly, top the lists of professions for female cheaters. And it's jobs in IT or tech for male cheaters, which I think is less of a surprise.
No.
This is all according to a survey by the dating site Ashley Madison.
OK, so why do people cheat? To answer this, we're joined now by broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy.
Morning, Lucy.
So, is it OK of me to say naughty nurses in this day and age? Am I going to get cancelled for that?
You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Been cancelled.
See ya.
There's the door.
But yes, you're talking about the caring professions, and I think it's very appropriate.
I'm surprised by that.
Women, well, because they're very nurturing, very loving, very giving, whereas the males who are in tech and IT, very strategic.
Is there a link between high-pressure jobs, maybe nurses infamously, you know, they're working long hours, underpaid, stressed out? Is there a link between jobs of that nature and cheating, maybe as a relief?
Absolutely. Is it just about sex, or is it about emotional connection? Is it about emotional validation? And increasingly, people are discovering that their primary relationship is just not a place where they feel safe.
This survey found that personality didn't actually come into it that much. It was about half and half if you're an introvert or an extrovert that you'd be likely to have an affair.
I think that's right. And I think that just speaks to the fact that all people want to have a good emotional connection. So it doesn't matter whether you're really social or whether you're someone who has to recharge your batteries in private time, that actually we only ever want three things in life. We want to feel safe, we want to feel loved, but we also want to feel heard. And in increasingly a number of marriages and long-term relationships, we get into grooves, we get into ruts, and we stop hearing our partner, we stop listening to them, and they stop listening to us.
The People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. It's 11:48 on Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Now, today, if you didn't know, is the summer solstice, and it seems that the weather has finally realised we're in June too.
Well, maybe for now anyway, but crowds gathered at Stonehenge this morning to celebrate the occasion. We're also seeing a slight heat wave across the country, with temperatures in some parts expected to top 24 degrees today.
Come on, 24 degrees isn't a heat wave.
Is it?
Well, look, has summer finally arrived? That's the question. And what is the outlook for the coming weeks? Well, who best to answer that is Alex Deakin, meteorologist at the Met Office. Alex, first of all, let me have it out with you. 24 degrees isn't a heat wave, is it? Come on.
No, he's got fire in the background.
It absolutely isn't a heat wave. No one is saying it is, certainly not at the moment. There is a chance we could reach heat wave criteria next week, because it's early next week that it's warming up. Also, correct you on another thing, the solstice was actually yesterday. Weirdly, it was on the 20th. But you know, it is definitely warming up.
I always thought the summer solstice was the 21st of June. So you're saying the summer solstice is the 20th of June?
It was this year because there's a leap year. So when there's a leap year, it's often on the 20th.
So that's why you got it wrong. It is normally the 21st. We could just pretend, because people are at Stonehenge anyway, so they've got the wrong day.
Well,
Perhaps somebody should tell people
I think
at
they were there
Stonehenge.
for the first sunrise of it coming up after because it was like yesterday evening solstice.
OK, Alex, so what can we expect this weekend and, of course, in the weeks coming for the rest of the summer? Have we got a decent summer on the way? That's the big question.
Wow, summer's a long time, Ben. You know, we're talking 2 or 3 months. I'm sure there'll be some pleasant weather on the way, but certainly in the short term, this weekend looks pretty good. Temperatures kind of low to maybe mid-20s. There'll be quite a bit of cloud around at times, some rain around tonight, but actually most of the weekend looks decent, dry, fine, some good spells of sunshine, just kind of classic summer weather, if you like. Early next week, so Monday and Tuesday, it is going to get a bit hotter. The first kind of proper bit of heat that we're going to see, 28, 29. Small chance we might even hit 30 Celsius on Tuesday across the southeast. After that, it's likely to change. You know, the old saying, 3 fine days and then a thunderstorm. Well, we could see some heavy downpours from the middle of next week onwards. So that's something we need to keep an eye on. But certainly the next few days, definitely warming up.
Yeah, OK, well, that sounds a bit good. Just very briefly, how far ahead can you look forward in your forecast, roughly?
Well, it depends what you mean. If you're talking about a specific location, then you're really talking 5, 6 days ahead. If you're talking about the general flavour of the weather across the whole country, then we can go out to kind of 10 days, maybe even 2 weeks. The general patterns, as I say, heat early next week, and then it looks a bit more mixed as we go through and beyond next weekend and into the start of July.
All right, Alex, thank you very much. That's Alex Deakin. He's a meteorologist at the Met Office.
So Tuesday, get your hats out, your sunglasses, 30 degrees potentially.
It's just...
I'm going to be there on one of the many commons of London wearing swimming trunks.
And this is Tom and Emily, by the way, on Good Afternoon Britain, who are
haven't introduced them yet, but they're on
just
next.
as excited as we are about Tuesday. But also today is going to be a scorcher on your show, eh?
Oh, very good.
Oh, thank you very much. I wasn't sure what you were going to say there. Yes, it's a lovely day, a fine day to have a Good Afternoon Britain, don't you think?
Absolutely.
We're, of course, going to dig into some of what happened last night at this question time. Keir Starmer finally admitting that, yes, he actually does think that Jeremy Corbyn would have been a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. It took a while to get there, though, didn't it? It took rather a lot of questions.
And he didn't shy away from the fact that he said he thought Jeremy Corbyn would be a great Prime Minister. So it really does raise some questions about how far this Labour Party has actually changed. And is this just a surface-level reorganisation, or is the change deep at all? And
sorry to interject, does it matter, though, anymore? I mean, the polls are, you know, have a massive lead for Labour. Does it really matter what Labour or Sir Keir Starmer says or does anymore?
Well, it's going to be informative in terms of how his government operates. I think that's the way that we've got to look at it now. Okay. This isn't about who wins the election. This is about what does a Labour government actually look like. And I think that really what we need to turn to now, all of us in this profession, is to start scrutinising what is inevitably the next government as if they're in power, because we might as well get a 2 weeks head start.
But do you feel that he's getting away with not saying too much at the moment, but now every time he speaks, people are starting to scrutinise. Do you think that's starting to happen now a bit more?
I think it needs to happen more. I think he's got away with being quite vague. Yes, there have been people accusing him of flip-flopping. Yes, there have been people who've said he needs to come down harder on policy in one way or another, but he does seem to have been getting away with it.
Well,
and I think it is very, very important for journalists and the public when they get the opportunity to actually try and drill down into what exactly is going to happen under a Labour government.
For all of them, actually, all of them. We need them to stop obfuscating and actually answer the questions.
That would be nice.
It's true, when they're based with the public is sitting there just saying, answer the question, and then they're under more pressure.
Really clear example in the Labour manifesto. They say everything is costed in the manifesto, but what isn't in the manifesto? For example, a settlement with junior doctors. Now, that's going to cost billions of pounds that haven't been accounted for. How's that going to be paid for? That's a big question mark. There are so many examples of these things that will have to be paid for that aren't
on
accounted
private
for.
schools. How can somebody not pay it when it's charged to the school? Everyone keeps saying, well, the people with special needs, but it's charged to the school, so how can you avoid it? Anyway, that's coming up in Good Afternoon Britain, so stay with us.
And lots more.
And lots more.
First, though, here's your weather with Annie. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're back next week, and on Monday, a brand new studio as well. See you soon.
See you tomorrow at 3.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Another fairly fine day for many of us, sunny spells and still feeling pretty warm in the sunshine, but there is some rain on the way for this evening. That's going to be moving in from the west. It's as a result of this weather front pushing into parts of Northern Ireland and the far northwest of Scotland later on this afternoon, and ahead of it, cloud will build across much of Wales into the southwest of Cornwall and Devon too. Further east, though, it should stay fairly dry and bright, and here is where it's going to feel very warm in the June sunshine once again. Highs of 24 degrees, quite likely. We could see a 25 degrees across some southeastern areas later on this afternoon. But further west, the cloud is building this afternoon, so it will turn quite a bit cloudier with potentially a burst of heavier rain, particularly across western areas of Scotland, the Northern Isles as well, starting to see some rain by this evening. Across the far southeast, though, of Scotland, it will remain likely dry this evening. Northeastern England as well, seeing a dry end to the day. A little bit of cloud around, hazier sunshine, but still feeling quite warm out there. But across the far southwest, a spell of heavier rain will push through in the early evening. Now, this band of rain pushes eastwards throughout this evening into central and eastern areas by tomorrow morning. And again, we've got a lot of cloud around with this. We won't see too much in the way of rain. I think it will be fairly light, any of that rain, but there is going to be a considerable amount of cloud around across much of England and Wales to start the day. So it will be another mild start, but it could just turn a little bit fresher across parts of Northern Ireland first thing tomorrow. That's because it's going to be a bright start. We're between weather fronts across Northern Ireland and much of Scotland first thing tomorrow, but the next weather front will move in later on in the day. But elsewhere, after a cloudier start, it will turn brighter as the day goes on. There's a risk of the odd shower across eastern areas, but for most of us, a dry day with temperatures in